spells for many elsewhere, and temperatures just starting to pick up perhaps a little bit as we go towards Wednesday, and then the potential for some more significant weather as we go into Thursday. But keep up to date with all those Met Office warnings. They're on the Met Office website.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
It's a brand new year and we're giving you the chance to win our biggest cash prize to date.
£85,000 in tax-free cash could be yours.
And we've come to the Aurora Collection Resort here in Lapland to celebrate. An incredible £85,000 in tax-free cash could be yours.
For another chance to win £85,000 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB18 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 30th of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
It appears seem to need more time to do that.
They definitely do. I mean, I think this country is becoming so ageist, it's not true. We're all being taxed, and when you think of the years and years we've all paid taxes, and, now they're having another go at us. They're taxing our pensions and everything that we might have saved for that rainy day. Certainly, when crossing a road, it is, if you are, I've got a bad knee, you've got a bad knee over there. We have problems. You have a few problems, Eamon.
About everything.
Yeah, but when you get across the road, you're frightened. I'm frightened of falling, because I think that's one of the major things of old people. They're terrified. I've had 2 friends in the last fortnight fall very badly and they're in hospital. And then you suddenly get this beep, 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 beep on a crossing, and you panic a bit, and the cars are coming, and bicycles are suddenly there. It's all...
Are people generally not very patient then? Because if there's an old lady or an old man crossing the road in front of me, I'd always stop.
No, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And if you're in a wheelchair, they probably run you over more. I mean, it's a terrible situation.
I mean, it's not so much pedestrian crossings, right? It's the ones where it's lights. When Christopher quite right says about the beep 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 is so you have, and suddenly it says 10 seconds, 9 seconds.
The countdown's stressful.
Yeah,
and can imagine it would be stressful
it
for
is
elderly
trying to I have to trying to drag my leg across the road.
GB News, the People's Channel.
A really important thing about GB News, and it's brought something completely different to the landscape.
The mainstream is all about keeping the status quo as it is, ticking along quite nicely. They don't want to ask difficult questions.
GB News exists because there is a desperate need for fearless journalism that puts the people first.
GB News came on the scene as a disruptor, and it has always been a disruptor ever since.
Journalism in this country has been a cosy world full of groupthink until now.
Well, the reality is that most British journalists are afraid. That's not GB News.
Journalism is journalism at the end of the day, and we're not here to serve any masters. Our masters are our audience.
We're here to talk about things in a way that have never been broadcast on British airways before.
Do not miss a moment on GB News.
The #1 news channel in the country.
A very, very good afternoon to you all. Hope you had a superb New Year's period. It's 3 p.m. and welcome to the Martin Daubney Show here on GB News, broadcasting live across the UK. All the very latest news, debate and analysis all the way through until 6 p.m. We've got a corker of a show. Here's what's on today's menu. Dramatic scenes from New York as ousted Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro is humiliatingly transferred from a Brooklyn detention centre to the Manhattan courthouse. The kidnapping of Maduro was something straight out of a Schwarzenegger movie, and now Donald Trump has hinted, "I'll be back," to deal with Colombia's president, and perhaps even to take over Greenland. Will Trump get a Hollywood ending, or is this a horror movie for world peace? Well, all the latest, plus will be live from that courthouse at 5 p.m. Now, Keir Starmer has reignited his war of words with Nigel Farage by blasting the Reform UK leader as slippery.
You get with Nigel Farage is a lot of slippery things that are said, but when you hold them up to the light, they're not actually true. And peddling falsehoods is no way to solve the problems of this country.
But with many political pundits thinking the Prime Minister is a political dead man walking, can Keir Starmer survive 2026, or will he simply slip into irrelevance? And shocking new data has revealed that at least 30 dangerous mental health patients secretly freed from hospitals have gone on to kill. On today's show, I'll speak with Dr. Sanjoy Kumar, whose beautiful daughter Grace was murdered by Valdo Calacane, on his fears that Calacane could walk free. And the comedy king, Chuckle brother Paul Elliott, he was rewarded with an MBE in the King's New Year's Honours list. And the legendary Rotherham comic Paul Chuckle, he will speak to me and to you on today's show. Well, to the show, it's a pleasure to have your company. I hope you had a superb, restful, festive period. 2026 promises to be a political year unlike any other, and what a start. Straight out of a Schwarzenegger movie. In fact, Jason Statham would have turned this plot down as too far-fetched, but it happened, an audacious kidnap of the socialist, illegitimate President Maduro. Today, in court, in Manhattan, in New York. The humiliation will be broadcast globally on live TV, and we will be there for you with the full analysis. What does this mean for America? What does it mean for world peace? What does it mean for the socialist MPs in Britain who seem more concerned about Maduro than they do the oppressive regime he led in Venezuela? Meanwhile, Keir Starmer starts off 2026 where he left off 2025, having a pop at Nigel Farage, this time saying he's slippery and can't be trusted. Well, will Keir Starmer see this year out? So we've got so much to get cracking into. Get into its usual ways. That's gbnews.com/your say is the way to do so. Scan the QR code on your screens now if that's your cup of tea. But now it's time for your headlines, and here's Sam Francis.
Martin, thank you, and good afternoon to you. 3 minutes past 3. Well, dramatic images show Venezuela's former president Nicolas Maduro being transferred by helicopter to a New York court after his capture by US forces. Maduro was flown from Caracas over the weekend in a special operation and is facing drugs and weapons charges alongside his wife, who was seized with him. China and Iran have condemned the move, calling it a violation of international law, as Venezuela prepares to swear in its new leader, Delcy Rodriguez. US President Donald Trump has issued a warning to Venezuela's interim leadership, while here at home, Keir Starmer is facing pressure from MPs to condemn the US action. Earlier today, our political editor Chris Hope asked the Prime Minister if his critics were wrong.
Look, people will take different positions on this, but I think the vast majority of Labour voters and supporters, in fact the vast majority of people across the country, would say the most important thing is that peaceful transition to democracy. It's been years in the waiting, and now we need a period of stabilisation, but we mustn't lose sight of the fact that the most important thing is that transition to democracy in Venezuela.
Meanwhile, the Prime Minister has said he stands with Denmark after Donald Trump suggested the United States could annex Greenland. Keir Starmer said Denmark's Prime Minister Frederiksen was right to reject any US claim, insisting Greenland's future is for Greenland and Denmark alone. Mr Trump, though, has argued the territory is vital for US defence, citing its strategic location and mineral wealth. Ms Frederiksen said that the proposal makes absolutely no sense and that the US has no right to the region. Police in the United States have arrested a suspect after the home of the Vice President, J.D. Vance, was broken into overnight in Ohio. The Secret Service says an adult male was detained after windows were smashed at the property in Cincinnati. The house was unoccupied at the time and the Vice President and his family were not in the state. Authorities say the suspect remains in custody with no motive confirmed so far. Snow and ice have shut hundreds of schools and disrupted travel across large parts of the UK as the deep freeze continues to tighten its grip. Yellow weather warnings remain in force across much of England, Scotland, Wales and in Northern Ireland, with forecasters warning of more widespread snow later this week. Sunday night was the coldest of the season so far. Temperatures in Cumbria fell to minus 10.9 degrees. Flights and trains, meanwhile, have been cancelled, Eurostar services to the Netherlands suspended and Liverpool's runway has been closed. In sport, Ruben Amorim has been sacked as Man United's manager after just 14 months in charge, with the club currently 6th in the Premier League. United says the decision was made reluctantly, adding it was the right time to make a change, with sources telling us there was no clear evidence of progress this season. The former player and under-18s coach Darren Fletcher will take charge of Wednesday's game against Burnley before a caretaker manager is appointed. The club is expected to name a permanent successor in the summer. New border powers have come into force today, allowing immigration officers to seize mobile phones and SIM cards from small boat migrants without making an arrest. The government says the move will speed up intelligence gathering to target people smuggling gangs behind the Channel crossings. Ministers insist the powers will be used proportionately, but critics argue the changes amount to little more than cosmetic deterrence. Well, those comments come from the Shadow Immigration Minister Matt Vickers, who told us earlier he thinks the policy is just tinkering around the edges.
People who break into this country, who come in illegally, without permission, without the passport, who have no right to be here, should be removed. That's how you solve this. Everybody at home knows it. It's a common sense approach, and we know it works because we tested it when we had that agreement in place with Albania. It was one of the top places from which people were arriving in the country. We stopped those people coming, we removed them straight away, and all of a sudden, 93% less of them were arriving in this country. We need a deterrent, we need it in place. Everything else is tinkering around the edges.
And from Bond villains to flying cars, a Scottish motor museum says its collection of iconic film and TV props could be worth millions of pounds. The privately owned museum near Falkirk draws around 10,000 visitors every year, showcasing everything from working replicas of Chitty Chitty Bang Bang to vehicles seen in Only Fools and Horses and the Harry Potter films. But the headline act is the Lotus from The Spy Who Loved Me, collected by owner Colin Anderson over more than 2 decades. Those are your latest headlines. I'll be back with you shortly. Next, though, a look at the markets.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GBNews Financial Report.
8 minutes past 3, here are the markets for you. The pound will buy you $1.345 and €1.152. The price of gold is £3,287.25, that's per ounce, and the FTSE 100 is at 9,975 points.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GBNews Financial Report.
Thank you, Sam. Now, without any further ado, let's get stuck into 2026 and let's get cracking with this one. Dramatic scenes from New York as the ousted Venezuelan president, Nicolas Maduro, as you can see on your screens now, arrived at a Manhattan courthouse via helicopter drop, where he is today to face charges of narco-terrorism, drug trafficking and money laundering. You can see him there being shuffled out. It is regulation issue, slippers, or are they sliders, pyjamas, handcuffed, hunched down, cowering, him and his wife behind him, simply being humiliated utterly on global television. Maduro appears in court later on today in just over 2 hours' time, and of course we're bringing that live and direct here on GB News. And meanwhile, back here in Blighty, Keir Starmer appeared to defy Donald Trump as he told GB News' Chris Hope earlier on today that he stands with Denmark after the US president seemingly threatened to annex Greenland. Well, joining me now is GB News' national reporter Charlie Peters. Charlie, astonishing scenes over the weekend, so far-fetched. Arnold Schwarzenegger might have turned down the movie plot, but now Donald Trump has said, I'll be back, possibly for the Colombian president, possibly for Greenland. But all eyes today, Charlie Peters, on Manhattan. The global humiliation, the astonishing scenes of President Maduro being wheeled out to face legal charges on American soil.
Yes, Martin, just 2 hours to go until we expect Nicolas Maduro and his courtroom in Manhattan, where a 92-year-old judge will be presiding over that case, at least for the charging that's going ahead. And you mentioned Colombia and you mentioned Greenland. He's also taken shots, as it were, towards Cuba and also Mexico. I can bring you a response we've heard from the Mexican President, Claudia Sheinbaum, in a press conference today. She said, in reaction to President Trump saying that the country needs to get its act together, or he could also direct some of his forces there, she said, this is just President Trump's manner of speaking. Another world leader, it appears, calling his bluff in some way or another. Bring you live pictures now from New York. Apologies, Martin, I'm not sure what we're seeing on your screens right now. I've not been told, but those live pictures coming up. Under Secretary General speaking there, presumably at the United Nations, perhaps, but that's the United Nations. Just had a confirmation that is the UN gathering now to speak on recent activity over the weekend. I was hoping we could bring you some of those pictures of Maduro being taken from Brooklyn to that courthouse in Manhattan, because there is ongoing drama outside the courthouse now, Martin Daubney, because those who support the Venezuelan president, the deposed president, have gathered outside the courthouse to protest against the situation, along with those who oppose him. So they are clustered across the street. There's now ongoing protests outside the courthouse, some chanting in English and Spanish, holding signs that said USA hands off Venezuela, US out of Latin America, but also those who are supporting the criminal proceedings, and some who are holding Venezuelan flags. So the split in public opinion in the United States, and indeed between Venezuelans who live in the US, continues as he is preparing to face those charges. He has got a court-appointed lawyer for this process, a court-appointed attorney. He will likely retain some private counsel ahead of that gathering, ahead of his hearing later today, where he is expected to respond and provide a plead to those charges. It's worth noting, Martin, that when there previously was a senior Venezuelan figure in a US court facing very similar charges, a senior politician, diplomat, and indeed intelligence chief, they pleaded guilty when charged with narco trafficking and other similar charges. So that is one to watch, certainly, and we'll be covering that live when Nicolas Maduro and his wife appears. But broader questions need to be asked now, Martin Daubney, about what happens around the world. Already the Prime Minister put in so many tricky positions over the last couple of days. It's clear that the United Kingdom had no awareness that this operation was about to take place in Caracas, and he is now caught in a difficult position between wanting to stay close to the US president because of the widespread tech deal that the US and UK is recently agreeing, and also due to the special rates that the UK enjoys on tariffs with the US as opposed to many countries of similar standing and links with Washington. But he's now being forced today to come in to defend Denmark because of President Trump's recent comments. He said last night on Air Force One, we need Greenland from the standpoint of national security. Donald Trump making that comment after the wife of Stephen Miller posted a photo of Greenland with a US flag covering it, saying soon. I can bring you now some pictures of those protesters live outside this courthouse. You can see a gathering there. Previously, this whole area, this is Worth Street in downtown Manhattan, Martin, totally blocked off as US law enforcement officials arrived. We saw the drug Drugs Enforcement Administration, the DEA, who were central to the arrest on Saturday. Those agents and indeed some armed police officers were accompanying Nicolas Maduro and his wife, the deposed president, as they were taken to that courthouse. Martin, we will be live at that courthouse when Maduro appears later this afternoon.
Swap their Palestinian flags for Venezuelan flags. Isn't it astonishing how the people who seem to be taking sides with Maduro seem to be white, liberal, middle-class socialists, and the Venezuelans seem quite happy, actually, that the despotic leader of Venezuela has been dethroned. Jolly Peters, thank you very much. We'll be catching up with you, of course, throughout the show. Superb as ever, my friend. Happy New Year to you. Back in the studio. Happy New Year to you, Chris Hope. As ever, my friend, it's going to be a cracking 2026. You got a shredder to a flying start today. You sat down with Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer. He spoke about Nigel Farage. He spoke about his chance of survival. More of that later in the show. For now, let's focus on this astonishing situation with President Maduro. And of course, Sir Keir Starmer has been pressed repeatedly. His parliamentarians have been pressed repeatedly. Will you condemn Donald Trump's actions, yes or no?
The answer was he won't say yes or no on that, will he, Martin? He'll say it's not straightforward, he told me for GBNews about 3 hours ago. It's complicated. It's for the US to justify the action it's taken. I think that clip there that Charlie Peters was discussing from the United Nations, all eyes now on the UN. If there's a vote to condemn what's happened in Venezuela, what does the UK do? Do we stand to one side? Do we abstain?
Trump doesn't care about the UN.
No,
he tore them to pieces. That's the UN.
Of course not. But that is what we're not sure will happen next. But the big question here is, although Venezuela is now a done deal with Maduro and his wife there in manacles being led off to a Brooklyn court, what's next? What may happen with Greenland, of course, which is protected by Denmark? Here's what he told us. This is Sir Keir Starmer told us earlier about Greenland and Donald Trump.
The future of Greenland is for Greenland and the Kingdom of Denmark. And for Greenland and the future of Denmark only. And Denmark is a very close ally of the UK, both in Europe and in NATO, and it's very important that we're clear about the principles applicable to here. Greenland and the Kingdom of Denmark must determine the future of Greenland and nobody else.
Starmer earlier telling me that this is a very close ally of the UK, both in Europe and NATO. I mean, quite honestly, if Trump goes for Greenland, it's really hard to see what the UK does. That might be the moment that we separate away from them in terms of their expansionist international policy.
Sir Keir Starmer there, resuming his more favoured position of sitting on the fence. He's been sitting on so many fences, he's got splinters in his backside. He leaps out and condemns anybody when it suits him, but he won't leap out and condemn Donald Trump because he knows he can't.
What could he do? I did ask him, I said, aren't you weakening our hand with Russia if we don't condemn America over Ukraine, or maybe if China has a go at Taiwan? They're doing some military activities over the New Year break. If that were to happen, what would he say? China would say, well, you didn't speak out when America went into Venezuela, a sovereign territory, and took the president and his wife hostage, or captured them.
But isn't that the point? This is the naked hypocrisy here of the Labour Party, not just the Prime Minister, but they condemn Israel. They condemn Vladimir Putin. They'll condemn China. They'll condemn anybody. But they can't condemn Donald Trump. And anyway, it wouldn't matter.
This is politics.
No one's listening to Keir Starmer on the world stage.
This is literally being in charge of a country. You have to work out what is in the national interest. That's why he is simply saying it's not straightforward, it's complicated. But the international law is his framework. I should say, Martin, guess what happens this week, today and Wednesday? The UK formally finishes the passage of the bill, the Act, which hands over control of the Chagos to Mauritius. So while we follow the law, as the UK does follow the law, Trump doesn't. That is the new world order we're in. Is it right that we're handing back the Chagos Islands? We're following international legal decisions made against this country. But guess what? I bet Trump wouldn't.
Yeah, and that's in the Lords, I believe, this evening. Look, stick around, Chris, because, of course, you have done a full interview with Keir Starmer, and once again starts off 2026, where after 2025 having a major pop at Nigel Farage. That is going to come after the break. Thank you very much, Chris. We've got another guest now. Let's speak with the Deputy Director for Latin America International as the International Crisis Group, Elizabeth Dickinson. Elizabeth, welcome to the show. A pleasure to have your company. What's the international community's position on Donald Trump's action? On the one hand, of course, he, if you like, decapitates Hamas, Hezbollah, Iran, China, America's foes in South America. But it was an audacious kidnap of Maduro, now in a Manhattan court.
The region, which I think has been very divided. We have to first start with the fact that very few countries in Latin America had recognized the government of Nicolás Maduro because he did lose an election in 2024 and had refused to recognize the results of that vote. So while I think there is some relief that he is out, I think there is great concern and consternation across Latin America for the way that it happened. And the message that this has sent across the region and really the entire Western Hemisphere is that for those leaders who are not on board with Trump's agenda, they know that they can face the risk of this sort of military action. I think that already that coercive diplomacy is reshaping the way the region is thinking about their ties with the United States. Countries that are much closer to Washington have stayed silent or even expressed support for this operation, whereas countries such as Mexico, Brazil, Colombia, Uruguay, Chile have come out and said very strongly that they are in favor of non-intervention and democratic processes.
OK, Elizabeth Dickinson, I hope we can hear you there. You cut off for me. I wanted to ask you about, a lot of people now suddenly getting hot under the collar about international law, but they kept pretty quiet when Maduro simply ignored the fact he lost the presidential election. They kept pretty quiet about the fact he was inviting China, Iran, Russia, Hezbollah and Hamas onto Venezuelan soil. And don't forget, it was the Biden regime that put a $25 million reward out for to remove him from power.
Well, there has been bipartisan support, I think, for the policy to hold free and fair elections and see a political transition in Venezuela. But here's the interesting thing about what has happened. Maduro and his wife have been removed, but the entire rest of the regime, including the hardliners who were behind orchestrating flawed elections and cracking down on the opposition, remain in power. So essentially what has happened is the U.S., although it has carried out an operation that looks like regime change, they have not changed the regime. And I think there are clear questions about whether really we're going to see a change in behavior from authorities in Caracas.
OK, Elizabeth Dickinson, thank you very much for joining us today and giving us your expertise. I thank you for that, and a Happy New Year to you. Thank you very much indeed for joining us on GB News. Now, still to come, it's Keir Starmer on political death row. Well, the Prime Minister has set out his plan to save his premiership, as he insists he's not going anywhere. He sat down earlier today with our very own Chris Hope. We've got all the inside story. That's next with me, Martin Daubney, on GB News, Britain's #1 news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Bold. They are under no illusion.
Ray.
Are you a human trafficker?
Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get this on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What we're going to do now, they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
No,
isn't it?
no,
Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Welcome back. 3 with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, as the new year unfolds, Sir Keir Starmer remains confident. He remains confident in himself, at least, and he will still be Prime Minister this time next year, emphasising that frequent changes in leadership are not in the national interests. Well, joining me now is GB News' political editor Chris Hope, who sat down with Sir Keir Starmer this morning. I believe you were in Reading. And, of course, as you'd expect, a certain Nigel Farage popped up in the questioning, and as in 2025, Sir Keir Starmer wasted no time to have a pop.
To be fair, I asked him about Sir Keir Starmer, but there's no question in Downing Street they believe the main challenger at the next election will be Nigel Farage. It'll be a battle over why we are who we are, where this country should go to. And I said to him simply this: what do you make? Why is he so much more popular than you to the Prime Minister? What's he doing right that you're not doing? And here's what the PM told me.
Nigel Farage says a lot of things that aren't true and don't come to fruition. So he stood in front of your viewers in the Brexit referendum and said, if we leave the EU, migration will come down. Well, it didn't come down, it quadrupled. So what you get with Nigel Farage is a lot of slippery things that are said, but when you hold them up to the light, they're not actually true. And peddling falsehoods is no way to solve the problems of this country.
There you have it, Nigel Farage. We haven't heard yet his response to being told he's peddling falsehoods and being slippery, but that's certainly how the PM views him. He thinks under pressure that the ideas, the policy ideas from reform will fall apart.
That's what's happened with the Labour Party, though. Well, let's be brutal about this. Since the Labour Party came to power, practically everything they've said, they've done a U-turn on in terms of major policy announcements, benefits cuts, the inheritance tax cuts, the winter fuel allowance cuts. To call Nigel Farage slippery seems a bit rich when Keir Starmer's natural position is the U-turn.
Well, it has been. I think that the PM's problem goes back to the election when we had to somehow find the money to pay off the cost of paying for everyone at home during COVID, £500 billion on that, plus the energy shock. And rather than saying taxes must go up, or even benefits bill must fall, they're going after individual groups and then backing down. First it was the pensioners with the winter fuel payment, and then it was the benefits row last year, and the family farm tax before Christmas, and we'll come to that very shortly. I think he's roaming around trying to find whether people can raise money. What they need, though, is growth. Now, the forecast is that AI could fuel growth before the next election. That's the big gamble I think this government's taken, that artificial intelligence could fuel growth in unexpected areas of the economy. But as things stand, there is no growth, really, and that's a problem. But he's throwing forward into this year, saying that we've got frozen train fares now, we've got money coming off fuel bills in April, there's 3,000 more coppers on the streets in March. So he's trying to tell us about what they announced last year again, more and more this year.
Maybe we're better off with an AI Prime Minister at this rate. But you talk about U-turns there. Was there a crumb of comfort, maybe a flash of the ankle shown towards hospitality?
Yes, there is. Just very briefly, on pubs and hospitality, they got money from the government to mitigate their large business rates. Now, we know they'll be going up again in April, and some pubs will be closing. We'll have drinks over Christmas. Publicans were telling us about this. Wherever you drink in your your local. I asked the PM if he was banned from his local, as we understand other cabinet ministers have been banned. He didn't answer that question, but he did show a bit of ankle, I think, on a possible package to sort out and help out pubs and restaurants. Here's what he told us on the issue of hospitality.
We acknowledge for pubs and others that the re-evaluation means that they will struggle in relation to the business rates applicable to them. That's why we're working with them, and also other measures. They want more freedom for licensing. They want more freedom to actually open for longer, and we're very open to that discussion with.
That's Sir Keir Starmer there, clearly indicating that something could be happening, maybe allowing them to open longer, flex the licences, find a way to make money. But I think that bill, that large rates bill, won't be going down.
I think the notion of staying open longer misses the point. It means the same costs, but at greater expense. You know, you've got to get the same staff on for longer. People already aren't staying out later at night. Pubs are emptying earlier on. I think he's missing the point. It's not keeping them open for longer. It's cutting their cost base.
I was round here Friday night, Martin. Left the studio here, having presented. Place was dead. I mean, pubs looked very empty.
That's because I was off. But on a serious point, you know, Keir Starmer has a lot of work to do on hospitality. He's got a lot of work to win the voters back. We did end the year with something of a Christmas miracle for farmers on inheritance tax, and he mentioned something else about farming today, did he?
That's right. They've doubled the level at which they'll start charging inheritance tax on estates from to 5 million from 2.5 million, 1.25 million for a single farmer. That was good news. What I wanted to try and find out from the Prime Minister was why he did it, and if he still believed that it was right to charge IHT on farmers. And here's what he told us.
Principle of applying inheritance tax to farmers is obviously the right principle, but I listened to those that had concerns about where the threshold was, including the president of the NFU and the ex-president of the NFU, listened carefully to what they had to say and determined that we should adjust the threshold, not the principle, but the threshold, and that was the right thing to do.
Keir Starmer there. So that big U-turn, extraordinary, just before Christmas, not announced by Keir Starmer or Rachel Reeves, but by the Environment Secretary, which is quite extraordinary.
A lot of people saying, Chris, that Sir Keir Starmer is a dead man walking. The polling is disastrous. He can't seem to turn it around. It's the only thing he can't do a U-turn on, some people might say. The starting of the year, the polls are out, and we're seeing a continuation of the trend, desperately hoping that tactical voting could keep Nigel Farage out. I always ask you, when you're up close and personal with people in power, how does the Prime Minister seem? If you're looking as an outsider and you think there's a man who'll be waiting for the axe to fall, but how is he?
Feels that way. He's actually quite chipper privately. I don't think that's how he feels. He feels that he's been dealt a tough hand by the last Tory government. He's got to get through that. He's got to work out what he stands for and trying to convince us there's a narrative behind his time as Prime Minister. I was struck by the very end of his remarks to those Labour members in Reading. He gave a nice chat about the freezing the air, the rail fares and so forth, and dealing with the cost of living crisis. And at the end, he says, "And now I'll have a cup of tea or a coffee and a biscuit." And I thought, well, make a choice here, Keir Starmer. Do you want tea or coffee? Don't say either or. And I think that's part of the problem. Make a choice, go for it. Don't announce things and then withdraw from them, as happened with the family farm tax, as happened with the winter fuel allowance, and as happened with our benefits cuts from last year. Yeah. Make a choice, not tea or coffee, it's tea or coffee.
Custard cream or a hobnob, it'll be up till Christmas, Chris. So thank you very, very much indeed. Now, I've got some breaking news for you. First, it was the Manchester United gaffer that got the chop, and now it's Celtic. Yeah. The Scottish team have sacked Wilfried Nancy as their manager. This comes, of course, after Celtic lost the Old Firm derby 3-1 this weekend, and they find themselves 5 points behind the league leaders' Hearts. There were huge protests by fans during, before and after that game's position seemed simply untenable. Now, the second gaffer in one day got the chop. First Man U, now Celtic. Wilfried Nancy has done the longest walk of shame. Bring the latest on that as it arrives. Of course, we've got a huge amount of breaking news on today's show, and there's loads more still to come between now and 4 p.m, including border officers will now seize small boats, migrants' phones without arrest. Why weren't they doing that all along? An astonishing story, but first, here's your latest news headlines with Sam Francis.
Very good afternoon to you, 3:33. The top story this hour. Dramatic images show Venezuela's former leader Nicolas Maduro flown by helicopter to a New York court after being captured by US forces. He's facing drugs and weapons charges alongside his wife. China and Iran have condemned the operation, while Venezuela prepares to swear in its new leader. Here, the Prime Minister has said he stands with Denmark after Donald Trump suggested the US could annex Greenland. Sir Keir Starmer backed the Danish leader, rejecting the idea outright, despite Mr. Trump claiming Greenland is vital for US defence. Snow and ice are causing major disruption across the UK as the coldest night of the season so far brings chaos to travel and schools. Temperatures in Cumbria plunged to minus 10.9. Flights and trains have been cancelled and Eurostar services remain suspended. New border powers are now in force, allowing officers to seize phones from small boat migrants without making arrests. The government says it will help target people smuggling gangs, but critics say it's just tinkering around the edges. And two top team managers have been sacked today. Scottish team Celtic have sacked Wilfred Nancy, while Manchester United sacked their manager Ruben Amorim after just 14 months in charge. Man U says it's the right time for change. Darren Fletcher is taking charge midweek ahead of a permanent appointment in the summer. Those are the half-past headlines. A full roundup with the news at 4.
Tune in to GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB Digital Radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player, on Nation Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Afternoon, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. The cold spell continues, slowly getting a bit milder later this week, but still very cold tonight, a continued risk of ice, and for some there will be further snow flurries. We have a few Met Office yellow warnings in place. The snow showers in eastern England should be fading away this evening, and they'll tend to ease off in Wales and southwest England too, but still some to come here in the next few hours. Some snow showers continuing across Scotland and Northern Ireland. Won't be as cold in Scotland as the cloud increases here through the night, but for England and Wales, a hard frost could get down to minus double figures in some rural spots, particularly where there's snow lying on the ground. So a frosty, potentially icy start to Tuesday. This cloud bringing a real mishmash across Scotland tomorrow. There will be some rain, but still some snow mixed in too, particularly could be heavy over parts of northern Scotland. An ice risk further south, and for southern Scotland, northern England could also wake up to a covering of snow here. Further south, the snow showers may be easing around the western and easternmost coast, but still it could be very icy in the morning wherever we've had the showers today as things freeze up overnight. Much of the south dry and fine then on Tuesday with some sunshine. We'll see thicker cloud at times over northern England, particularly Scotland, where we continue with the risk of some heavy snow, especially across the north. Further south, there'll be more outbreaks of rain with some hill snow possible for Northern Ireland and Wales late in the day. But as I say, for much of the south, it'll be dry. Still on the cold side. Now, Wednesday sees the weather system clearing out into the North Sea. Still some wintry showers, mixture of rain, sleet and snow in these showers coming into eastern areas. Sunny spells for many elsewhere, and temperatures just starting to pick up perhaps a little bit as we go towards Wednesday, and then the potential for some more significant weather as we go into Thursday. But keep up to date with all those Met Office warnings. They're on the Met Office website.
Thank you, Britain, for making GB News Radio such a huge success. Whether you're in the car, on the go, or listening at home, thank you for choosing us as your radio station.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from GBnews.com. The A90 is closed southbound between Goval and Craigstone due to adverse weather. On the M53, the southbound entry slip at Junction 4 is shut after a road traffic collision, with normal conditions expected between 4:30 and 4:45 this afternoon. On the M42 southbound, between Junction 3A and Junction 3, an incident has 2 of 3 lanes closed and is causing around 30 minutes of delays, easing between 4:45 and 5. And on the trains, Grand Central and Hull trains report major disruption between Peterborough and Stevenage, plus disruption between Peterborough and Grantham. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Welcome back. Time is 3:38 with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, ready yourself for this story, because migrants can now have their phones and their electronic devices seized at Dover under a huge new clampdown on illegal immigration. Oh, well, that'll scare them, won't it? That'll really make them quake in their sandals. Now, surely this won't stop the people smuggling gangs. More to the point, why on earth wasn't this happening all along? Well, who better to ask than Tony Smith, the former Director General of the UK Border Force. Tone, a Happy New Year to you. You can sense my cynicism in this. I cannot believe that people can just waltz into Britain with a phone and have no checks about their person even happening. I put it to you, this is another chocolate teapot of an idea. The idea that taking phones off them is some kind of breakthrough that will smash the gangs. It's absolutely for the birds.
Yeah, hi Martin. So this is the new Border Security, Immigration and Asylum Act now has come into force today. That's what this is all about. You know, I gave evidence to the committee last year on that. It took a year to pass. It is a symptom of what they're talking about on their smashing the gangs agenda. I mean, with regard to migrants turning up on small boats with phones, most of them throw their phones away. That if they have got phones, we could still seize devices, I think, because they were under arrest under previous legislation. So I think what this enables us to do is to look on the phones for specific intelligence, if you like, to identify whether they're linked to a smuggling gang or something. And the powers are also exercisable pre-arrest. So if you don't arrest somebody, for example, in the UK, who's already here, who might not be an illegal immigrant, but might have a phone on them, then you can do that. So I can see what they're trying to do, but it's all aimed at the the Border Security Command having new powers to gather intelligence, Martin, in those cases where we can retrieve mobile phones, rather than as a deterrent to stop people coming in the first place, I think.
And Tony Smith, they're also saying here they've got strong new powers to ask them to remove their coats, to remove their jackets, to remove their gloves, and to conduct searches inside their mouths for hidden SIM cards or other devices. Now, Tony, I don't want to put people off their tea at home, but I put it to you, if you can smuggle a phone into a prison via some, unsavoury method, you can smuggle one into Britain via an unsavoury method. And doesn't this surely underline the fact, rather than searching people when they arrive, we should contain everybody in containment centres, process them as if they are prisoners, and process them accordingly there?
Yeah, well, they do go through Western Jetfoil into Manston, and they're usually soaking wet, Martin, so they're given new clothes anyway. And if there is evidence that they're carrying with them, that's put in an evidence bag and taken to Manston. So that's already happening, actually, in most cases. I think it's the question of what can we do with these phones when we've got them, and whether these powers are going to be helpful in terms of getting more intelligence, if you like, to get after the gangs. But the whole agenda behind this legislation, as you recall, will be to try and smash the gangs and give, us more powers to do that and get evidence against the smugglers, not in fact to stop the boats as such by deterring migrants. As you and I have discussed before, the main language they will understand is that they are detained on arrival, and they stay detained until they're removed. At the moment, that's not happening. The vast majority of them are given immigration bail pretty well immediately, within 24 hours, and then released into the community. And I don't think this is really going to make much difference in regard to that sort of an impact that we're looking for, Martin.
Well, I mean, it would seem to be abundantly clear that if most people chuck their phones overboard anyway, a lot of people are chucking their passports, they're throwing everything overboard anyway. So this will only affect a small percentile of people, and presumably a lot more will be hiding SIM cards about their persons in ways that can't be intercepted, because these powers don't go, they're not as kind of vigorous enough, are they, as if you're entering a prison, for example, or if you're entering a country with full powers to search. And on a broader point, Tony Smith, it's a new year. Are you seeing any glimmer of new hope in helping to quash numbers, the second highest amount of numbers of all time? 41,472 illegals arrived in 2025. Do you think we're going to see any kind of a breakthrough in the new year, or is it going to be a repeat of the same old mistakes?
Well, let's look on the bright side. Martin, it's the 5th of January and we haven't had any boats so far this year. I wonder how long it's going to be before we start getting that briefed out, that these things are working. You know as well as I do, this is all about the weather. And the proof will be in the eating. This government's legacy will be what the figures were in 2025. 41,000, nearly 41,500. That's the second highest on record. 3,000 or 4,000 behind 2022, which was the highest, but certainly up from the previous year. That is now on the record, and that's what people are going to measure them by. So we will have to wait and see whether any of this stuff has any impact on those numbers. But as things stand, I can't see that there's any decrease in the migrants that are amassing in northern France waiting to get across. Your own reporters give me evidence of that as much as anything else. So I'm not sure that any of these new measures in the new laws are going to stop the boats, but I'm going to have to wait and see, really, Martin.
Tony Smith, I haven't been able to ask you your expert's opinion on the French situation. We saw before Christmas an incredible story of the French police simply saying that they will refuse to intercept craft. They'll refuse to slash craft or interfere with their propellers, as was the agreement between Emmanuel Macron and Sir Keir Starmer. Sir Keir Starmer called that essential. The police union, the maritime coppers there, said, no, we won't do that in case it endangers people on these illegal crafts and they take us to court. I've asked this before, I'm going to ask you it again. Is it time to defund the French?
We're not getting a very good bang for our buck, are we, Martin? We've heard constant stories last year about promises about what the French were going to do. I have to say, from an officer point of view, and I was an officer, I would be concerned if I was being told to go into the water to try and intercept a dinghy, and if something happened and someone, God forbid, drowned, what would be culpability on my part? My understanding is those officers in the unions over there have been told, yes, down to you. You could be responsible yourself for manslaughter or worse if that happens. So you can see why the unions are saying, well, we need absolute legal protection. If we're going to go in and start doing things like this, then we want the legal protection. And I think the French government at the moment is a bit of a mess politically over there. I don't think they're getting the steer that they need. So I'm not sure we can rely any more upon the help from the French. There are things, as I said to you before, what could be done. In my view, they could find these dinghies easily. They could stop them leaving the waterways with floating barriers. All kinds of measures that I know are in place in other borders around the world that they're not using, that they really don't want to use. So I'm not sure the political will is there, Martin, to stop the boats. It's going to be down to us, and it's going to be what we do when they get here, I'm afraid, rather than being able to stop them in France.
Tony Smith, I've said it to you before. I'm going to say it to you again. You're the best in the business. If we have people like you advising governments, we might stand half a chance. Happy New Year to you, and I hope to see much, much more of you in 2026. Tony Smith, absolute pleasure. As always, my friend, thank you for your time today. Now, in response, Alex Norris, the Border Security Minister, told GB News this. These operational measures sit alongside sweeping reforms to the system to make it less attractive for migrants to come here illegally and remove and deport people faster. Now, still to come, we'll be crossing to Scarborough, where GB News reporter Anna Riley is up to her armpits in snow.
It's a winter wonderland here at the seaside town. You can just see how it's been blanketed in snow, and this of course comes with that yellow weather warning for snow and ice across a large swathe of Britain. But if you can get a flight and you fancy some sun, here's the European weather forecast.
Ready to soak up that holiday sunshine?
Won't we need some cover?
No worries, all sorted.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there. If you're after some warmer weather, Greece at the moment seeing temperatures above average. Still the risk of some showers across the Canary Islands at the moment and parts of Madeira. Perhaps southern Spain also seeing 1 or 2 showers, but generally some bright skies around. Heavier rain for parts of Italy on Tuesday. Could be thundery at times, and then the risk of some showers into Greece, but temperatures well above average for the time of year. And it remains so here for the next few days until eventually starting to cool down.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m. only on GB News.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Samantha, Jeffrey, thank you for your time tonight on The Late Show Live. Really appreciate it. This is a story that, amongst all the stories of wars and murders and crime and so on, at least it's given us a laugh, and at least the raccoon is okay. Just explain to us, if you can, Samantha, exactly what happened. Where was the raccoon found? Where is he now? Who found him and so on?
Yeah, so the store manager went to open up the ABC store here in Ashland, Virginia, and discovered a bunch of broken bottles in the back room. Upon further investigation, he was also located a raccoon that was passed out in one of the bathrooms. He had locked himself in the bathroom, and that's when the store manager called us to get him.
So first things first, how on earth did he end up in the store? How did he get in there?
So he fell through the ceiling. So he went through a ceiling tile and took out the wiring for the video camera as he was falling down. So we don't have a whole lot to go off of, just what the evidence that we encountered when we got to the scene of the crime.
So he fell through the ceiling, and I guess he landed on, because there's pictures here we've got of bottles of, I think it's whiskey, just strewn all over the store. So he must have fallen through the ceiling onto the shelves, smashed all the bottles, and then I guess from there thought it was going to be a great idea to, what, lap up all the alcohol on the floor?
I guess so. He just decided to have a party.
And who found him?
The store manager.
And what was their reaction? Have you spoken to them? What were their first sort of comments to you when they, I guess they called you to report the raccoon passed out in the bathroom, right?
Yeah, they were a little bit distraught. They didn't know how to get him out. They obviously did not want to pick him up themselves. That's why they called us for assistance.
GB News, the People's Channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Cates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Welcome back. It's 10 to 4. You've been Martin Daubney on GB News. I'm sorry to spoil your time, your prophecy there, Tony Smith, but GB News, we've got some breaking news. We can exclusively reveal that the first small boat of 2026 has made it to the UK, and dozens of illegal immigrants are on board after crossing the Channel in sub-zero temperatures. Now, this comes hours after several other attempted crossings had to be abandoned because of those weather conditions, with multiple migrants treated in French hospitals for hypothermia. So there we go, it's a new year and it's the same old problems as the first dinghy lands in Britain. Now, the deep freeze has finally hit, and let's cross to Scarborough, where GB News' Yorkshire and Humber reporter Anna Riley joins us from a particularly chilly patch there. Welcome to the show, Anna. Anna, and you certainly are up to your ankles in snow there. Tell us more.
Good afternoon, Martin. Yes, it's certainly cold in Britain, isn't it, today, with that yellow weather warning in place for snow and ice across all 4 nations. You can just see the snow coming down here in Scarborough. There's the mist as well near the sea. Quite hard to see out, but if you would believe it, we saw people out swimming and surfing and paddleboarding in the sea earlier today. So certainly they were braving it, with hundreds of schools closed as well across the UK. We have seen children out and about playing in the snow as well, having snowball fights and making the most of this weather. It has caused a lot of travel disruption. Liverpool John Lennon Airport was closed, the runway, for a large amount of today. It did reopen, but they've said that there are still delays and some flight cancellations as well. We can see just here as well, next to the amusement arcade, there's a gritter that is out spreading. And when we've seen cars coming past as well, There have been a lot of them skidding as well due to these weather conditions, so certainly do be careful if you are out on the roads. And as well as the roads being impacted, we know that rail services have been impacted, in particular in northern Scotland as well, with some trains cancelled. Also Aberdeen Airport was grounding flights as well due to these weather conditions that we are seeing. Here in Yorkshire and the Humber region, this weather alert is in place until 11 o'clock tomorrow morning, and they're saying as well in some parts of the UK as well it could dip below -10 degrees this evening, so certainly I will be putting on the heating tonight as well and keeping wrapped up. And with these weather alerts as well, the Health and Security Agency have put in an amber health alert that lasts until Friday. That means that there could be more pressures on the NHS and older and more vulnerable people as well, susceptible to the cold. So certainly do wrap up warm, but if you can, get out and enjoy it and throw a snowball or two.
Anna Riley, sounds like a cue for you to go and sink your fangs into one of those legendary fish suppers there on Scarborough Beach. You go and get yourself a cup of tea and a fish supper. Looks absolutely beautiful. Thank you very much for joining us on the show, Anna Riley. Merry Happy New Year to you. Much more of it in 2026. You stay warm now. Still to come on the show today, the UN Security Council is holding an emergency meeting on the situation in Venezuela, as you can see on your screens. But will Donald Trump care? He was there in 2026. He absolutely eviscerated the UN as a spent political force. No doubt now they'll be trying to wag their fingers at him. Plus, Maduro will be in court. Astonishing. And it'll be here on GB News, Britain's News Channel. First, though, here's your chilly, chilly weather.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Afternoon, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. The cold spell continues, slowly getting a bit milder later this week, but still very cold tonight, continued risk of ice, and for some there will be further snow flurries. We have a few Met Office yellow warnings in place. The snow showers in eastern England should be fading away this evening, and they'll tend to ease off in Wales and southwest England too, but still some to come here in the next few hours. Some snow showers continuing across Scotland and Northern Ireland. Won't be as cold in Scotland as the cloud increases here through the night, but for England and Wales, a hard frost could get down to minus double figures in some rural spots, particularly where there's snow lying on the ground. So a frosty, potentially icy start to Tuesday. This cloud bringing a real mishmash across Scotland tomorrow. There will be some rain, but still some snow mixed in too. Particularly could be heavy over parts of northern Scotland. An ice risk further south, and for southern Scotland, northern England could also wake up to a covering of snow here. Further south, the snow showers may be easing around the western and easternmost coast, but still it could be very icy in the morning wherever we've had the showers today as things freeze up overnight. Much of the south dry and fine then on Tuesday with some sunshine. We'll see thicker cloud at times over northern England, particularly Scotland, where we continue with the risk of some heavy snow, especially across the north. Further south, there'll be more outbreaks of rain with some hill snow possible for Northern Ireland and Wales late in the day. But as I say, for much of the south, it'll be dry. Still on the cold side. Now, Wednesday sees the weather system clearing out into the North Sea. Still some wintry showers, mixture of rain, sleet and snow in these showers coming into eastern areas. Sunny spells for many elsewhere, and temperatures just starting to pick up perhaps a little bit as we go towards Wednesday, and then the potential for some more significant weather as we go into Thursday. But keep up to date with all those Met Office warnings. They're on the Met Office website.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Thank you, Britain, for helping us reach 10 million followers across our social media platforms. We're truly honoured to have your trust, one follower at a time.
Good afternoon, this is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. On the A90, the southbound carriageway is closed between Goval and Cravestone because of adverse weather. On the M42 southbound between Junction 3A and Junction 3, a crash has shut 2 of 3 lanes, with delays of around 50 minutes. In Milton Keynes, Northamptonshire's M1 southbound between junction 14 and junction 13, a road traffic collision is blocking 2 of 4 lanes, adding about 15 minutes. And on the trains, Grand Central and Hull trains report major disruption between Peterborough and Stevenage, plus disruption between Peterborough and Grantham. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Hello from the Aurora Collection Resort here in Lapland. We're on an amazing Arctic adventure to celebrate our greatest cash giveaway, a simply stunning £85,000. And in 2026, we're giving you the chance to win it all.
For another chance to win £85,000 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB18 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 30th of January. The winner may be contacted live on GB News, week commencing the 9th of February 2026. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
No,
because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Very, very good afternoon to you. It's 4 p.m. and welcome to the Martin Daubney Show here on GB News, broadcasting live across the UK. All the very latest news, debate and analysis all the way through until 6 p.m. What a cracking show. And here's what's on today's menu. Dramatic scenes from New York as the ousted Venezuelan president, Nicolas Maduro, is transferred from a Brooklyn detention centre to the Manhattan courthouse. You can see live pictures on your screen now of the former president, the president of Venezuela, being frog-marched out of a chopper, wearing regulation pyjamas and slippers, humiliatingly, with his wife behind him, cowering his way under the propellers there as he heads towards a courtroom drama that will be telecast live across the world in an hour's time, and of course we'll be there for you. The kidnapping of Maduro was something straight out of a Schwarzenegger movie, and now Donald Trump has hinted, I'll be back to deal with Colombia's president and even perhaps to take over Greenland. Will Trump get a Hollywood ending, or is this a horror movie for world peace? And live pictures on your screen now, you can see the UN Security Council is holding an emergency meeting on this topic ahead of Maduro appearing in court in an hour's time. But why on earth would Donald Trump care? He called the UN pointless in September. We'll bring you full updates on that story. Meanwhile, back in Blighty, Sir Keir Starmer has reignited his war of words with Nigel Farage by blasting the Reform UK chief as slippery.
You get with Nigel Farage, there's a lot of slippery things that are said, but when you hold them up to the light, they're not actually true. And peddling falsehoods is no way to solve the problems of this country.
But with many political pundits thinking the Prime Minister is a political dead man walking, can Keir Starmer even survive 2026? Or will he slip into irrelevance? And we've got some breaking news for you on GB News today, and it's this. New year, same old problems. GB News can exclusively reveal that the first small boat of 2026 has made it to the UK with dozens of illegal migrants on board after crossing the channel in sub-zero temperatures. The boats keep coming even though it's a new year. And shocking new data out today has revealed that at least 30 dangerous mental health patients secretly freed from hospitals have gone on to kill. On today's show, I'll speak with Dr. Sanjoy Kumar, whose beautiful daughter Grace was murdered by Valda Kalakane in Nottingham, on his fears that Kalakane could walk free. And the comedy king, Chuckle brother Paul Elliott, was rewarded with an MBE in the King's New Year's Honours List. The legendary Rotherham comic Paul Chuckle will speak to me and to you on today's show. Once the show, it's a pleasure to have your company. Yeah, the first small boat has landed in Britain in 2026. Just 5 days in, new year, same old problems. And in around about an hour's time, we'll be live from that courthouse in Manhattan as the former president of Venezuela, Maduro, will face American justice after an astonishing movie plot that wouldn't even make it past Schwarzenegger. Now, Donald Trump is saying, I'll be back to perhaps take out the Colombian president and hinting at a Greenland takeover. It's all happening, and it's all happening here on GB News. Get in touch, gbnews.com/you'll say is the way to do so. Or you can scan the QR code on the screen now if that tickles your fancy. But now it's time for your news headlines, and here's Sam Francis.
Martin, thank you. Very good afternoon. Just after 4 o'clock. Well, Venezuela's seized President Nicolas Maduro will soon appear at a New York court, charged with various drugs and weapons offences after being seized in a US Special Forces operation. Maduro and his wife were arrested at their compound in Caracas and flown to the United States, with dramatic images showing them in handcuffs surrounded by armed officers as they departed a helicopter. The move has sparked international backlash, with an emergency meeting of the UN Security Council taking place, where Antonio Guterres said that he was concerned international law may not have been respected. China and Iran have condemned the move, calling it a violation of international law as Venezuela prepares to swear in its new leader, Delcy Rodriguez. US President Donald Trump, though, has issued a warning to Venezuela's interim leadership, while here at home, Sir Keir Starmer is facing pressure from MPs to condemn the US action. Earlier, our political editor Chris Hope asked the Prime Minister if his critics were wrong.
Well, look, people will take different positions on this, but I think the vast majority of Labour voters and supporters, in fact the vast majority of people across the country, would say the most important thing is that peaceful transition to democracy. It's been years in the waiting, and now we need a period of stabilisation, but we mustn't lose sight of the fact that the most important thing is that transition to democracy in Venezuela.
Meanwhile, the Prime Minister has said he stands with Denmark after Donald Trump suggested the United States could annex Greenland. Sir Keir Starmer said Denmark's Prime Minister Frederiksen was right to reject any US claim, insisting Greenland's future is, he says, for Greenland and Denmark alone. Mr. Trump has argued the territory is vital for US defence, citing its strategic location and mineral wealth. Mr. Frederiksen says the proposal, though, makes absolutely no sense and that the US has no right to the land. Police in the United States have arrested a suspect after the home of Vice President J.D. Vance was broken into overnight in Ohio. The Security Service, Secret Service, says an adult male was detained after windows were smashed at a property in Cincinnati. The house was unoccupied at the time, and the Vice President and his family were not in the state. Authorities say the suspect remains in custody with no motive confirmed at this stage. Here, snow and ice have shut hundreds of schools and disrupted travel across large parts of the UK as a deep freeze tightens its grip. Yellow weather warnings remain in force across much of England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland, with forecasters warning of more widespread snow to come later this week. Sunday night was the coldest of the season so far, with temperatures in Cumbria falling to minus 10.9 degrees. Flights and trains have been cancelled today, Eurostar services to the Netherlands suspended, and Liverpool's runway closed. Breaking news in the last few minutes that we heard from Martin that GB News can confirm the first small boat crossing of 2026 has now reached the UK, bringing dozens of illegal migrants across the Channel overnight. The journey was made in freezing sub-zero conditions after several other attempted crossings were forced to turn back because of that weather. Well, French authorities treated a number of migrants for hypothermia after those failed attempts. And the arrival today comes after more than 41,000 migrants made the crossing last year, making it the second highest total ever recorded. And that comes as new border powers have come into force today, allowing immigration officers to seize mobile phones and SIM cards from small boat migrants without making an arrest. The government says the move will speed up intelligence gathering to target small boat people smuggling gangs behind the Channel crossings. Ministers insist the powers will be used proportionately, but critics argue the changes amount to little more than cosmetic deterrence. Well, earlier Shadow Immigration Minister Matt Vickers gave us his perspective.
People who break into this country, who come in illegally without permission, without the passport, who have no right to be here, should be removed. That's how you solve this. Everybody at home knows it. It's the common sense approach, and we know it works because we tested it when we had that agreement in place with Albania. It was one of the top places from which people were arriving in the country. We stopped those people coming, we removed them straight away, and all of a sudden 93% less of them were arriving in this country. We need a deterrent, we need it in place. Everything else is tinkering around the edges.
And in sport, two major clubs have sacked their managers amid mounting pressure and poor form. Celtic parting company in the last hour or so, we confirmed, with Wilfred Nancy. After just 33 days in charge, that is the shortest managerial reign in the club's history, following a run of 6 defeats in 8 games, capped by a 3-1 loss to Rangers. Meanwhile, Manchester United have also sacked Ruben Amorim after 14 months in charge, with the club currently 6th in the Premier League. United saying the decision was made reluctantly, adding it was the right time, they say, to make a change, with sources telling us that there was no clear evidence of progress this season. Man United is expected to name a permanent successor in the summer. You're up to date just after 4 o'clock. Next, though, a look at the markets.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
9 minutes past 4, the markets for you. The pound will buy $1.345 and €1.152. The price of gold, £3,287.25 per ounce. And the FTSE 100 is at 9,975 points.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
Thank you, Sam. Now, dramatic scenes from New York as the ousted Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro, he arrived at the Manhattan courthouse. You can see pictures on your screen earlier on. The shamed, the disposed former president of Venezuela being shuffled out of a chopper onto the tarmac there in Manhattan, wearing slippers, wearing pyjamas, manacled. His wife behind him. Global humiliation on live primetime television. And that's before we even get to the courthouse at 5 p.m, where he was set to face charges of narco-terrorism, drug trafficking and money laundering. Maduro appears in court in just over an hour's time at 5 p.m. and, of course, we'll be there for you exclusively live on GB News. Meanwhile, back at home, Keir Starmer appeared to defy Donald Trump as he told GB News' Chris Hope earlier on that he stands with Denmark after the US president threatened to annex Greenland. Well, joining me now is GB News' national reporter Charlie Peters. Charlie, welcome back to the show. About 50 minutes' time now, Maduro will face US justice in quite incredible scenes. This is the guy that used to sit atop a socialist fiefdom, living the lifestyle of an international playboy, of a king, now shuffling across the tarmac in pyjamas, in sandals. Global humiliation for the former president of Venezuela.
And Martin, he has been seen taking photos with some of the Drug Enforcement Administration officials who have been involved in taking him into custody, where he's been flanked by federal agents throughout the process, from being grabbed in the dead of night in his own bedroom by Delta Force and associated Department of Justice officials, right through to the USS Iwo Jima off the southern Caribbean, and then to Guantanamo Bay, into a air station in New York, down to Brooklyn in a high-security jail, and now where he is waiting in the cells of a Manhattan courtroom. He'll be appearing in the next 50 minutes or so alongside his wife. And Martin, I think it's worth just going through the indictment that federal prosecutors have brought forward today. They have alleged that for over 25 years, leaders of Venezuela have abused their positions of public trust and corrupted once legitimate institutions to import tons of cocaine into the United States. They say that Maduro was at the forefront of that corruption, his illegally obtained authority and the institutions he corroded to transport thousands of tons of cocaine to the United States. And Martin, we've seen US weaponry and the full range of the military deployed in the southern Caribbean for about 4 months now, conducting a range of lethal strikes on boats that the US government has alleged is transporting some of those drugs to the USA. We've seen 115 strikes, about 35 of them fatal, some of them in quite controversial means, with initial strikes not killing those on the small boats and follow-up strikes for those stuck in wreckages in the water. That has attracted a lot of international concern. And of course, Martin, there's a lot of talk right now about international law. But for the United States, might is right. And for them, the Western Hemisphere, the Monroe Doctrine, as it was previously known, now called the Donroe Doctrine. Donald Trump wants to control Venezuela, which is now, for all intents and purposes, an American colony. And as we speak, Martin, while Maduro and his wife are waiting in that cell to appear in the courtroom, the National Assembly of Venezuela, its first meeting, has begun in the last 10 minutes or so. A lawmaker called Fernando Rojas gave a defiant opening speech, as it's been branded elsewhere, condemning the capture of Maduro, which he called barbaric and cowardly. But it's the new puppet in charge of the country now whose change in tone is most important to follow, Martin. That is Delcy Rodriguez, who went from attacking what the US did, the intervention on Saturday morning, to suddenly speaking about an agenda of cooperation overnight. Much evidence to suggest that she is now working very closely with US officials, especially after Donald Trump said that him and his cabinet were in charge of the country on Saturday afternoon. Some reporting suggesting that Rodriguez had engaged in conversations with State Department officials and intelligence officials in the weeks leading up to the abduction of the man on your screens right now, Nicolas Maduro, being led out of that helicopter by federal agents from the DEA. Martin, there is also some further breaking news to bring you closer to home, because while there is all this talk of what Donald Trump might do next, speaking about Colombia, Cuba, talking about Mexico, and of course Iran on Saturday morning when we woke up to this extraordinary news in Venezuela. A lot of the front pages on the British newspapers were talking about him being locked and loaded for Iran, in a totally different neck of the woods. But it's activity closer to home that I think is of even more interest now, because yesterday morning we saw a lot of heavy lift cargo arriving into RAF bases, US C-17 cargo planes, and it's understood that they were transporting elements from the 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment. Now, that's the unit, Martin, that was involved in that daring and successful raid in Caracas that abducted Maduro, carrying those Delta Force operators into the heart of Venezuelan power. Some of those helicopters, nicknamed the Night Stalkers, now appear to be in the United Kingdom. Now, some of those C-17s and associated assets have flown further into Germany and also towards the Middle East, including the airbase that the US maintains in Qatar. But rather a lot of equipment has remained in the UK. We also saw the arrival of AC-130J gunships into the United Kingdom from the US Air Force Special Operations Command. So what are they looking at? I think it's highly likely they're taking an eye on an oil tanker, which is now 250 miles off the coast of Ireland. It's called the Bella 1, although it renamed itself to the Marinera. It was approaching Venezuela about 2 weeks ago on a trip from Iran. It's been sanctioned since 2024 due to alleged links to Hezbollah and the Iranian regime. And so far, the US has boarded 2 vessels in the southern Caribbean, taking those oil tankers. This is footage we're playing of you now of one of the most recent boarding processes from the US Coast Guard in December. It tried again to board this Bella 1 vessel, which is now, as I say, about 250 miles off the Irish coast, having departed from the southern Caribbean after that attempt from the Coast Guard. And just in the last hour or so, Martin, we've been tracking a US Navy P-8 patrol aircraft conducting what appears to be a reconnaissance sortie around the location where this oil tanker is, alongside also a C-295 maritime surveillance aircraft from the Irish Air Corps. So those two aircraft approaching and also appearing to be conducting reconnaissance activity around that same location. That Navy, US Navy P-8, was in the same location earlier today. So with special operations teams in the United Kingdom having flown in from the US and that reconnaissance taking place, could Donald Trump's next military action take place just 200 miles to the west of us?
Charlie Peters, thank you. A dramatic update there, a significant story. Thank you very much for joining us, Charlie. Superb as ever. More from you later in the show. Chris, got some immediate reaction to that story. This is very, very dramatic. This could be potentially the last oil tanker fleeing Venezuela before the regime came crashing down. Of course, most of their oil, their crude oil, has been sold to Iran, sold to China. Coming into British waters. We've seen American craft before. We've seen American helicopters boarding, taking over these vessels. This could be happening next in British waters.
Well, the challenge will be if the UK is asked by America to do something about this vessel, as Charlie says, 200 miles off the coast of Ireland. Do we do something about it? Do we ignore them? Do we let the Americans take the lead? As things stand, we heard from Sir Keir Starmer to telling in GBNews earlier that it's not straightforward, it's complicated. Well, it's getting more and more complicated by the hour. And of course, that tanker not too far from Greenland, which is, of course, the Kingdom of Denmark, controlled by Denmark, which we have heard from Donald Trump how he's keen to get his hands on that. I don't know if we have a clip of that.
Yes.
We have a clip of what Keir Starmer told us earlier. What do you do if he tries to invade Greenland? We asked him earlier. Here's what he said.
Greenland is for Greenland and the Kingdom of Denmark, and for Greenland and the future of Denmark only. And Denmark is a very close ally of the UK, both in Europe and in NATO, and it's very important that we're clear about the principles applicable to here. Greenland and the Kingdom of Denmark must determine the future of Greenland and nobody else.
Sir Keir Starmer there, it seems to me that any issue of Denmark or Greenland is a red line for Sir Keir Starmer.
Fascinating stuff. Let's continue this conversation now. Join my next guest. That is Emil Jaeger, beg your pardon, the political editor at the Denmark publication BT. Emily Jaeger, welcome to GB News. Pleasure to have your company. Who's next?
Thank you.
It could be Greenland, and there are a lot of reasons potentially why Donald Trump would have his eye on Greenland. Strategically, it's of great importance. It's a land barrier, of course, between Russia and the US, and it has trillions of dollars of rare earth minerals underneath it, which, of course, America needs. And currently, China has 90% control over. But tell us, what are Denmark, what are Greenland saying about this extraordinary move?
I would say that they're saying a lot of the things that we actually heard from your Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, right now. So people are appalled. They're not actually surprised because he's really just repeating what he said about a year ago, but they are appalled. And our Prime Minister, Mette Frederiksen, just spoke less than an hour ago, stressing how serious she finds the situation and reminding everyone that Greenland is a part of NATO as well as Denmark.
But there could be a situation, could there not? I mean, I don't think anybody's suggesting, are they, that Donald Trump would invade Greenland and take it over. But clearly there's a lot of political pressure being leveraged on the country. And do you think there's any potential down the line that Denmark might say, do you know what, potentially Greenland should be strengthened, it should be fortified, it should be a barrier between the East and the West, and perhaps the best people to run that is the USA?
No, I think we're really far away from that right now. But it is true that, of course, Trump is stressing again and again that he has to have Greenland because of the security threat that it possesses, being the geopolitical situation where it is placed, right? So what Mette Frederiksen and Denmark is doing is just stressing that we know it is of great importance. We have invested, I think it's about 90 billion Danish crowns into security of the Arctic and of Greenland. But of course, We don't have a great history regarding that because we have made promises to Trump before, saying that we would have drones, that we would have more ships, and we would have stuff like that, and we haven't been able to deliver. And of course, one might wonder that he knows that. So the question is right now, is he trying to pressure us to deliver on some of the things that we have promised? We have entered into a lot of agreements, and we have bought a lot of ships and stuff like that, drones, but not a lot of these things are in place right now. So the question is, how long can he wait? And is it enough, actually? Or is it because he has some kind of imperialistic ambitions? And if that is the case, it's clear that there's not much that Denmark can do.
And also, it's fair to say that the trillions of dollars worth of rare earth minerals underneath Greenland are vital to technology, to guided missiles, to the furtherment of global warfare in terms of peacekeeping. And a lot of people are saying that the oil story in Venezuela is actually a cover story. There are huge amounts of rare earth minerals in Venezuela, key to the future. China at present has a stranglehold on them. Greenland is sat on huge reserves. Might there be an agreement where America could partnership with Greenland to help extract them so we can keep the Chinese at bay?
That is a possibility, certainly also because that if it is that Trump is just worried about the security, there is actually already now a defense agreement at place that gives the USA and gives Trump broad access to Greenland. So if it were that he was just interested in it for security measures, there's already an agreement taking place, and also Mette Frederiksen is stressing that every chance she gets.
It's an extraordinary time to be alive in politics. It truly is. The sheer unpredictability of the situation is astonishing. Emily Yeager, thank you so much for joining us on GB News. I appreciate your expertise and a very, very happy New Year to you there in Denmark. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. You too.
Cheers. Now, still to come on today's show is Keir Starmer on political death row. And once again, he's reignited his war of words with Nigel Farage, this time blasting the Reform UK chief as slippery. Well, our man Chris Hope was with him, who's not at all slippery. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m.
Only on GB News.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. only on GB News.
Bold. They are under no illusion. Ray, are you a human trafficker? Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get this on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines. The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it? From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos. What I'm going to do now, they are throwing things out the car as we speak. Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's approaching 4:27 now. A reminder, about half an hour's time, we'll be live in Manhattan as Maduro faces the music in Manhattan. But before that, as the new year unfolds, Keir Starmer remains confident he'll be the Prime Minister this time next year. And GB News' political editor Chris Hope spoke to him earlier. Chris joins me now in the studio. And, of course, it's a new year, but the same old political foe is dominating once again. Keir Starmer steaming into Nigel Farage.
Yes, we did ask him about it, so he answered the question, which has been, good enough to do so. But he did raise it yesterday also in an interview on a different broadcaster. What he says is he thinks that Nigel Farage is slippery, the things that aren't actually true when you hold them up to the light. Now, we haven't heard yet what Nigel Farage responds to that, but let's hear the exact language used by Sir Keir Starmer to me about a few hours ago now.
Nigel Farage says a lot of things that aren't true and don't come to fruition. So he stood in front of your viewers in the Brexit referendum and said, if we leave the EU, migration will come down. Well, it didn't come down, it quadrupled. So what you get with Nigel Farage is a lot of slippery things that are said, but when you hold them up to the light, they're not actually true. And peddling falsehoods is no way to solve the problems of this country.
That's Sir Keir Starmer there. I mean, I think he's really saying there, Martin, that, word Nigel Farage here, he would say Brexit wasn't done properly by people who believed in it. And that's part of the problem with why it's been such getting a bad rep at the moment.
Isn't it a bit rich for Sir Keir Starmer to call Nigel Farage slippery when Sir Keir Starmer's natural position seems to be the U-turn?
Well, yes, you could easily say that. I mean, he's saying that some of the policies that are put forward by Reform UK don't stand up. There's no silver bullets. There's no big idea that can get you around the issue of the cross-border crossings from France. He wants to do individual deals with different countries. Nigel Farage thinks pulling out the European Convention on Human Rights gives him the rights and the powers to overrule the Strasbourg court and send people back to where they came from. Were Sir Keir Starmer here, he would say that is too simplistic and won't work.
But he's done a U-turn on the winter fuel allowance. He did a U-turn on the inheritance tax for farmers. He did a U-turn on a rape gangs inquiry. He did a U-turn on benefits cuts. That's the point. And you spoke to him earlier on about farming, and there was a huge U-turn, a screeching U-turn on December the 23rd. Yet Sir Keir Starmer seems to be defending his position.
Yeah, on farming. I think we've got a different clip coming up now on pubs, an issue of business rates, Martin, because, of course, that is the next big debate, I think, in politics. Will the government do a U-turn on this withdrawal of support for pubs? So Keir Starmer made clear there's a package being worked on within Whitehall, more longer opening hours for pubs and publicans. Let's hear what he told us about that.
Acknowledge for pubs and others that the re-evaluation means that they will struggle in relation to the business rates applicable to them. That's why we're working with them, and also other measures. They want more freedom for licensing. They want more freedom to actually open for longer, and we're very open to that discussion with them.
There we have it, Martin. That's what he said about the issue. I think there's something happening there. There's a bit of ankle being shown here by Sir Keir Starmer, but he was not going to move on the basic fact that business rates are going up for a lot of pubs in short order, and there'll be a big problem for them. Can they stay open?
I think Keir Starmer here is missing the point. He shows he doesn't understand pubs. You don't want to stay open longer. You want to have your cost base cut. If you're staying open longer, you've got the same staff. You've got the same bills, but only more so, potentially with less customers. Who's staying out later and later? Who is staying out at 2 in the morning now? Answer, hardly anybody. The pubs are ghost towns at 9, 10 o'clock these days.
There are 3 days when in London works, and that's probably Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, maybe Thursday night too. I did ask him, are you banned from your pub, Sir Keir Starmer? He didn't answer that question. Of course, we do know, reportedly, other cabinet ministers have been banned. He also talked about the U-turn you mentioned there, the family farm tax. Extraordinarily, that was announced by Emma Reynolds, who was the Environment Secretary before Christmas. That was the first remarks ever heard by Sir Keir Starmer about that just now to GB News. Not before, wasn't mentioned by Rachel Reeves or by Sir Keir Starmer. But he made clear the principle principle is right, despite the fact that it's been widely attacked for months now by farmers on GB News. Here's what he told us.
Principle of applying inheritance tax to farmers is obviously the right principle. But I listened to those that had concerns about where the threshold was, including the president of the NFU and the ex-president of the NFU, listened carefully to what they had to say and determined that we should adjust the threshold, not the principle, but the threshold, and that was the right thing to do.
So the right thing to do, they've increased that for a couple to £5 million you can pass on without paying IHT, inheritance tax. For individual farmer, £2.5 million. The idea is to tackle millionaires who aren't farmers, and that's why he believes the principle is still right.
I wonder if any of this counts for a row of beans, Chris. A lot of people out there, pundits, are simply saying that Keir Starmer won't even survive the year. May will be a hurdle he perhaps can't cross.
May is the big one. That's when we have elections in local elections in England. I'm not sure where they are yet, by the way, because 70 councils or so can apply for delays to that, and also Wales and Scotland. Yeah, he's got to come out with a narrative. The narrative, though, I think, is about cost of living and how that can be dealt with and how they can mitigate that for so many people, certainly people watching GB News. What he's got to find, though, I think, Sir Keir Starmer, is a narrative. I was struck by the very end of his remarks to Labour members there in the session we had in Reading with him this morning. At the end, he said, after going through all the freezing air rail fares and money off season tickets and more police on the beat and more money off energy bills, he said, now I'll have a cup of tea or coffee and a biscuit. And I thought, if you can't decide if you want tea or coffee, you know, make a choice here, Sir Keir Starmer. I think that's really where we need to be. We want to hear a more of a defined message from what's coming out from Number 10.
Heaven forbid if it was hobnobs or custard creams, Prime Minister. He'd be there till Christmas.
I'm only joking, but you see the point. I mean, let's have a choice here and move with it.
Thank you very much, Chris Hope. Always a pleasure, and a man who always gets the biscuit. Thank you very much indeed. Loads more still to come between now and 5 p.m. A tenuous pun, including English courts are still allowing biological men to use women's toilets in defiance, of course, of their own Supreme Court ruling. That's coming up soon, but first, it's time for your latest news headlines with Sam Francis.
Very good afternoon to you. 4:33, the top story. Venezuela's seized President Nicolas Maduro will soon appear at a New York court. He's been charged with various drugs and weapons offences. Earlier, dramatic images showed Maduro flown by helicopter after being captured by US forces in Caracas. China and Iran have condemned the operation as Venezuela prepares to swear in its new leader. Here, the Prime Minister has said he stands with Denmark after Donald Trump suggested the US should annex Greenland. Sir Keir Starmer backed the Danish leader, rejecting the idea outright, as despite Mr. Trump claiming Greenland is vital for US defence. Snow and ice are causing major disruption across the UK today as the coldest night of the season brought chaos and travel to schools. Temperatures in Cumbria plunged to minus 10.9 and flights and trains have been cancelled while Eurostar services to the Netherlands remain suspended. New border powers are now in force, allowing officers to seize phones from small boat migrants without making arrests. The government says it will help target people smuggling gangs, but critics say it's just tinkering around the edges. And two major top teams have sacked their managers. Celtic has removed Wilfred Nancy, while Manchester United sacked manager Ruben Amorim after 14 months in charge. They say it's the right time for change, with a permanent appointment expected in the summer. Those are the headlines for now. More at the top of the hour.
Take the GB News family with you on any device. As long as you have an internet connection, tune into GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond.
Afternoon, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. The cold spell continues, slowly getting a bit milder later this week, but still very cold tonight, continued risk of ice, and for some there will be further snow flurries. We have a few Met Office yellow warnings in place. The snow showers in eastern England should be fading away this evening, and they'll tend to ease off in Wales and southwest England too, but still some to come here in the next few hours. Some snow showers continuing across Scotland and Northern Ireland. Won't be as cold in Scotland as the cloud increases here through the night, but for England and Wales, a hard frost could get down to minus double figures in some rural spots, particularly where there's snow lying on the ground. So a frosty, potentially icy start to Tuesday. This cloud bringing a real mishmash across Scotland tomorrow. There will be some rain, but still some snow mixed in too. Particularly could be heavy over parts of northern Scotland. An ice risk further south, and for southern Scotland, northern England could also wake up to a covering of snow here. Further south, the snow showers may be easing around the western and easternmost coast, but still it could be very icy in the morning wherever we've had the showers today as things freeze up overnight. Much of the south dry and fine then on Tuesday with some sunshine. We'll see thicker cloud at times over northern England, particularly Scotland, where we continue with the risk of some heavy snow, especially across the north. Further south, there'll be more outbreaks of rain with some hill snow possible for Northern Ireland and Wales late in the day. But as I say, for much of the south, it'll be dry. Still on the cold side. Now, Wednesday sees the weather system clearing out into the North Sea. Still some wintry showers, mixture of rain, sleet and snow in these showers coming into eastern areas. Sunny spells for many elsewhere, and temperatures just starting to pick up perhaps a little bit as we go towards Wednesday, and then the potential for some more significant weather as we go into Thursday. But keep up to date with all those Met Office warnings. They're on the Met Office website.
Thank you to our global community for watching and listening to GB News. We're not only the #1 news channel in Britain, we're chosen by you around the world.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. The M6 northbound is slow between junction 15 and junction 16 in Staffordshire, with queues adding around 20 minutes. On the M1 southbound near Milton Keynes, between junction 14 and junction 13, a crash has shut 2 of 4 lanes and delays are about 30 minutes. In Kent, the M2 eastbound exit slip at junction 3 has a broken down vehicle, with 1 lane closed. And on the trains, Grand Central and Hull trains report major disruption between Peterborough and Stevenage, plus disruption between Peterborough and Grantham. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Welcome back. Time is 4:38. You're with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, English courts are still allowing biological men to use women's toilets in defiance of a Supreme Court ruling back in April. Now, 8 months on from that landmark judgment that trans women are not women under equalities laws, HM Courts and Tribunal Service has still not updated its own rules on the use of ladies' facilities. Well, I'm joined now by the Chief Executive of Sex Matters, and of course is Maya Forstater. Maya, welcome to the show, and a very, very happy new year to you. And yet, 2026, it's the same old bonkers stuff going on. How on earth can the Supreme Court ruling be ignored by British courts?
We don't know. This was one of the first institutions that we wrote to back in April last year after the judgment and said, can you tell us who's allowed to use your men's toilets and women's toilets? Seems like a straightforward question. And they wouldn't tell us. They said, we're working on it. We're working at pace. We have a review group. We're waiting for the EHRC guidance. Just excuse after excuse after excuse. And it's nearly a year later now, and they still haven't fixed it.
It's utterly absurd, and I put it to you that a courtroom toilet is a particularly sensitive place. It's bad enough if it's a toilet in a train station or a pub, but in a court of law, you undoubtedly, provably and obviously may well get women in a heightened state of emotional distress, and therefore they should be protected more than anywhere else.
Absolutely. You have criminal cases, rape cases, you have divorces, and you have cases about trans rights all going on in English courts. And people ought to be able to know that when they go into a women's toilet, they're only going to bump into other women. And that's not the case now. So, you know, I was in court for the Sandy Peggy case, which was up in Scotland, and there were trans activists there along with women's rights campaigners, and of course trans identified men were in the women's toilets with us, and the judges are being asked to decide if employers are acting lawfully in the way that they're managing their facilities. But the courtroom is not managing its own facilities lawfully.
You know, Maya, sometimes I think this is just because they're utter cowards. You know, they haven't got a pair between them. I wonder if it's something else, and that is there's such deference to other people. We've got a Prime Minister who couldn't even tell us for months if a woman had a penis or not, until he was told by somebody else it was acceptable to say that. And when you look into this case, they're saying, the courts in England, that they can't do anything about it until guidance is published by the Equality and the Human Rights Commission. So until somebody else tells us we have to do something, they're simply frozen in the headlines.
Exactly. And these are highly paid diversity and inclusion, HR, senior leadership. And what they're doing is they're putting their frontline staff into situations of conflict, because their frontline staff do have to deal with this. And what they're telling them is you can decide on a case-by-case basis. So rather than backing up their staff and saying, clearly, we have men's toilets, we have women's toilets, we have unisex toilets, there's somewhere for everyone and everyone knows their sex, they're putting the risk and the conflict onto the lowest paid staff. It is cowardice.
Maya, I've had you on the show so many times last year, for Women Scotland and so many others, and I think all of us felt 2025 might be the year when this madness finally came to a close. It wasn't. On a positive
I think it was
point,
the beginning. I think it was the beginning of the end of it. The Supreme Court's judgment is very clear, and if we have to go back to court, we will, because the government, public bodies, private bodies, they all have to follow the law, and the law is very clear now.
Is it though? Because we have here HM courts and tribunal services simply refusing or unable or unwilling to follow the guidance. We have Bridget Phillipson, the Education Secretary, the same, unwilling or unable to follow the guidance. We have NHS trusts. We have all sorts of people, all sorts of organisations simply unable or unwilling to follow the law. What's it going to take before they finally get their backsides in gear?
I think it's going to take them losing some cases, and I think that the buck has to stop at the highest level. It has to stop with the Prime Minister, who is also head of the civil service. The Courts and Tribunal Service is following a policy that has been adopted across the civil service. In fact, adopted under the previous government, but it hasn't been withdrawn since the judgment. And so that's the responsibility of the Prime Minister as the head of the civil service to say their policies must be lawful, they must be in line with the law.
OK, well, we have to live in hope that 2026 will finally be the year of common sense. Happy New Year to you. Thanks for all the work you do. Thanks for joining us again on GB News. That's the Chief Executive of Sex Matters, Maya Forstater. Thank you very much indeed for your time. Now, a government spokesperson has told GB News this: we will update policy wherever it is necessary and will be guided by the revised EHRC Code of Practice following government consideration. Now, still to come, to MBE, the comedy legend and the Chugger brother, Paul Elliott, has been honoured by the King, and he joins me next to talk to you. But first, here's the forecast for some of the top European destinations.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there. If you're after some warmer weather, Greece at the moment seeing temperatures above average. Still the risk of some showers across the Canary Islands at the moment and parts of Madeira. Perhaps southern Spain also seeing 1 or 2 showers, but generally some bright skies around. Heavier rain for parts of Italy on Tuesday. Could be thundery at times, and then the risk of some showers into Greece, but temperatures well above average for the time of year. And it remains so here for the next few days until eventually starting to cool down.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Well, pub bosses say they face financial ruin after Rachel Reeves' stealth tax raid in the budget as pint prices are ramped up, opening hours are cut and staff are laid off in desperate attempts to keep running.
So this morning we're asking, would you pay more for your pint to save local pubs?
Well, joining us now is pub owner Mark Bridgen and Communications Officer for the IEA, Reem Ibrahim. Really good to see you both this morning. Mark, let's start with you. We've spoken to you a lot about your lovely pub. Would you want people to pay more for a pint in order to save your business?
Well, it's looking like the only option. Yeah, with the increased taxes on every level and now the stress around rates increase and valuation agency, I don't know anyone that is making any money, so it feels like the only thing to do is to raise your prices. The irony is that actually at the moment many of us are actually putting down our prices to try and get people through the doors. You know, in a desperate bid to stay alive, we're having to, try and offer even more value.
Do you think the government is just tone deaf to the plight of our landlords of pubs and restaurants across the country?
They absolutely are. I mean, over 21,000 pubs have closed since 1980. That's half of that in the last 2 decades alone. So I really do think that the government have taxed, regulated, restricted pubs to the oblivion. But this is where I disagree with Mark. I don't think it's up to businesses themselves to say, you know what, we're going to remove our profit margins even further. We know that the hikes in national insurance contributions and increase in the minimum wage have a huge impact on small businesses.
GBNews, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, you didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's 4:48 with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. I'm delighted about this next story. I'm absolutely delighted because the comedy king Chuckle brother Paul Elliott, he's been rewarded with an MBE in the King's New Year's Honours List, where he's been rewarded for his charitable work, spending recent years supporting Marie Curie and helping raise huge sums of money through simple online appeals. And I'm delighted now to be joined by the comedian, the legend, Paul Chuckle, of course, Paul Elliott, MBE. Paul, an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. I grew up with you. I think you're an absolute legend. And you must be delighted that you finally got your MBE. Well done, sir.
Absolutely, and thank you very much indeed. Yeah, I'm so honoured, to get it. I could not believe it when I got the letter saying, they were going to honour me with it. I can't wait to go and collect it now.
And Paul, no doubt when you go and meet His Majesty, you might have some kind of funny quip to say to him. What are you going to say? To me, to Your Majesty?
Well, I might say, not from you to me, hopefully. It depends who it is, doesn't it, as well? I might be stum. Sometimes I can't say things much, but who knows? I mean, I'm just really looking forward to collecting it. It's I feel so honoured. It's fabulous.
And Paul, of course, as well as services to comedy, which this wasn't for, though heaven knows it perhaps should have been, this was for services, your recognition of your fundraising for Marie Curie for cancer, of course, because your brother Barry sadly passed away of bone cancer. And since that time, you kind of made it one of your missions to raise awareness. And that is why the King has given you the nod. Tell us about your charity work.
Well, both Barry and I were both ambassadors for Marie Curie for about 6-7 years before Barry passed away. It was just such a fabulous thing. So many people that have been looked after by Marie Curie in the later years. That's obviously because of the age we are, getting to that sort of age. Lots of our friends and family are passing away. And the Marie Curie, they just everything. When my father-in-law passed away, he was on what you say his deathbed, and a Marie Curie nurse sat up with my wife all night long. She didn't have to, but they sat there for like 7 or 8 hours with her. You know, it was they're just wonderful people. They do a lot more than people realise they do, and they're all nurses as well that, you know, can administer drugs and stuff if they needed to. And they were so kind with Barry, you know, at the end, obviously. And then I've just carried on after Barry passed away. I've carried on doing it all. I've got a big one coming up, this Daffodil Appeal, this March. We're really looking forward to that one. You know.
And Paul, social media gets a lot of knocking, of course, but you used your social media accounts to say, look, if everybody who follows me raises £1, that's a serious amount of money. And it caught on. And Marie Curie reached out to you and bang, you created a phenomenon.
Yeah, they did. That was probably 12, 13 years ago. I just got up to, that was new to Twitter, which is now X, obviously. And I'd just reached 50,000 followers. And I just put out there that if everybody that followed me put just £1 each in, it'd be a lot of money for Marie Curie. And I think quite a few did, but not everybody. I wish they had. But, you know, yeah, it was just that. And then Marie Curie got in touch and said, would you like to be ambassadors, you and Barry? And said, oh, of course we would, anything. And anything they ask me now, I do it straight away. They know that.
Paul, in a different lifetime, I used to edit a magazine called Loaded, and we campaigned to get the pair of you knighted. We said it's time to knight the Chuckle brothers because we all grew up with you. We thought you were absolutely fantastic. You brightened our childhoods, and we all spoke about you with great fondness as we grew into adults. Can I ask you a poignant question now, Paul? Of course, Barry passed away. What do you think he'd make of you getting this gong?
He would absolutely love it. I'd adore it. We're both staunch royalists, you know, and anything like that is just a wonderful thing, you know, a wonderful feeling to be honoured. You know, when you get the letter saying the King's Honours List, you know, it's just fantastic, fabulous feeling, really is. And Barry would have been, I know he is now. He'd be sitting here, just over my shoulder there. You know, he's with me all the time, and he'd be really pleased, really, really pleased. And I remember you working on Loaded magazine. I remember you putting out there as well that we should be knighted. I think it was knighted, you said, wasn't it? Yeah.
We said arise, Sir Chuckles. We really did. On a serious point, do you think Barry? You say he's always with you. Do you think, in a sense, he'll be with you side by side as you get that MBE?
I'm sure he will be. Yeah, he'll be there, no problem. He is. I feel he's with me every time I jump on stage nowadays. I'm sure he jumps into my body. Because he was always the funny man, I was the straight man on the act when we worked live shows. And I suddenly became a comedian, you know, when Barry had died. And I feel that he jumps into my body as I walk on stage. I really do. He's there with me. It's a fabulous feeling.
It's amazing to hear it. You know what? I wish you the very, very best of luck. Thank you so much for coming on the show. You know, they say you should never meet your heroes. I've just met mine. Honestly, thank you for all you did, and I wish you the very, very best of luck at the Palace. Paul Elliott, Paul Chuckle.
Thank you very much.
MBE. You take care. Thank you very, very much for what we've done over the years. Magnificent. Now, coming up next, Venezuela's seized President Nicolas Maduro will any moment now appear at a New York court, live on TV. Shame before the world. That's next on GB News.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boiler sponsors the weather on GB News.
Afternoon, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office. Here on GB News, the cold spell continues. Slowly getting a bit milder later this week, but still very cold tonight. Continued risk of ice, and for some, there will be further snow flurries. We have a few Met Office yellow warnings in place. The snow showers in eastern England should be fading away this evening, and they'll tend to ease off in Wales and southwest England too, but still some to come here in the next few hours. Some snow showers continuing across Scotland and Northern Ireland. Won't be as cold in Scotland as the cloud increases here through the night, but for England and Wales, a hard frost could get down to minus double figures in some rural spots, particularly where there's snow lying on the ground. So a frosty, potentially icy start to Tuesday. This cloud bringing a real mishmash across Scotland tomorrow. There will be some rain, but still some snow mixed in too. Particularly could be heavy over parts of northern Scotland. An ice risk further south, and for southern Scotland, northern England, could also wake up to a covering of snow here. Further south, the snow showers may be easing around the western and easternmost coast, but still, it could be very icy in the morning wherever we've had the showers today as things freeze up overnight. Much of the south dry and fine then on Tuesday with some sunshine. We'll see thicker cloud at times over northern England, particularly Scotland, where we continue with the risk of some heavy snow, especially across the north. Further south, there'll be more outbreaks of rain with some hill snow possible for Northern Ireland and Wales late in the day. But as I say, for much of the south, it'll be dry. Still on the cold side. Now, Wednesday sees the weather system clearing out into the North Sea. Still some wintry showers, mixture of rain, sleet and snow in these showers coming into eastern areas. Sunny spells for many elsewhere, and temperatures just starting to pick up perhaps a little bit as we go towards Wednesday, and then the potential for some more significant weather as we go into Thursday. But keep up to date with all those Met Office warnings. They're on the Met Office website.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Thank you, Britain, for making GB News Radio such a huge success. Whether you're in the car, on the go, or listening at home, thank you for choosing us as your radio station.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. On the A96 at Huntly, traffic is restricted both ways after an incident. On the M56 westbound between junction 14 and 15, lanes are closed after a collision until around 5:11. In Northamptonshire, the M1 southbound between junction 19 and 20 has one lane blocked by a broken down vehicle until about 5:17. Around Milton Keynes, the M1 southbound between junction 13 and 14 has two lanes shut after a crash, causing delays. And on the trains, Grand Central and Hull trains have major disruption between Peterborough and Stevenage and Peterborough and Grantham. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
It's a brand new year and we're giving you the chance to win our biggest cash prize to date. £85,000 in tax-free cash could be yours. And we've come to the Aurora Collection Resort here in Lapland to celebrate. An incredible £85,000 in tax-free cash could be yours.
For another chance to win £85,000 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB18 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 30th of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
I'm Michelle Dewberry. This is Jubes & Co with you.
Hello everyone, Patrick Christie's here at GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Access the stories that matter to you. Take the GB News family with you on any device. And as long as you have an internet connection, tune in to GB News anywhere on the planet or beyond. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Very, very good afternoon to you. It's 5 p.m. or welcome to the Martin Daubney Show here on GB News, broadcasting live across the UK. All the very latest news, debate and analysis all the way through until 6 p.m. We've got a corking hour ahead. Here's what's on your menu. We've got some live pictures for you there. This is outside the courtroom in New York, where Venezuela's seized president, Nicolas Maduro, will appear any moment at that New York court, charged with various drugs and weapons offence. You can see protesters outside, seemingly in favour of the shamed, seized Venezuelan former president. And that follows dramatic scenes from New York earlier as Nicolas Maduro was humiliatingly helicoptered and then frog-marched out, as you can see on your screens there, in regulation-issued pyjamas and slippers, with his wife behind him, both of them in manacles, frog-marched towards that Manhattan courthouse. And the kidnapping of Maduro was something straight out of a Schwarzenegger movie. And now Donald Trump has hinted, I'll be back to deal perhaps with the Colombian president and even to take over Greenland. Will Trump get a Hollywood ending, or is this a horror movie for world peace? We'll be live from Manhattan Court any moment now. And live pictures on your screen now, we can see the delegate from Argentina is speaking as the UN Security Council. He's holding an emergency meeting on this very issue. Why should Donald Trump care? He's called the UN pointless. He said all they do is write strong-worded letters and then do absolutely nothing. Meanwhile, back in Britain, Keir Starmer has today reignited his war of words with Nigel Farage by blasting the Reform UK chief as slippery.
You get with Nigel Farage is a lot of slippery things that are said, but when you hold them up to the light, they're not actually true. And peddling falsehoods is no way to solve the problems of this country.
Keir there, so Nigel Farage is peddling falsehoods. He is slippery, but with many pundits thinking the Prime Minister is a political dead man walking. Can Keir Starmer even survive 2026, or will he slip into irrelevance? And breaking news this afternoon, GBNews can exclusively reveal that the first small boat of 2026 has made it to UK shores, with dozens of illegal migrants on board after crossing the Channel in sub-zero temperatures. New year, same old problems. And shocking new data has revealed that at least 30 dangerous mental health patients secretly freed from hospitals have gone on to kill. On today's show, I'll speak with Dr. Sanjoy Kumar, whose beautiful daughter Grace was murdered by Valdo Calacane in Nottingham, on his fears that Calacane could walk free. Welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have your company. Any moment now, we're expecting to cross to Manhattan. The former president of Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro, about to be frog-marched into a Manhattan court to face justice. Pictures there, live pictures from outside. Various gaggle of protesters seem to swap their Palestinian flags for Venezuelan flags. They're calling Donald Trump out for his actions. Maduro will face the music any moment now. Of course, we'll be there live on GB News. Get in touch usual ways. gbnews.com/your say is the way to do so. Or you can scan the QR code on your screens now if you prefer to do that. But now's your headlines. And here's Sam Francis.
Martin, thank you. Good evening to you. Just after 5 o'clock. Well, let's take you back now to those live scenes in New York outside court, where protesters have gathered ahead of the first appearance of Venezuela's seized President Nicolas Maduro, who is expected to arrive momentarily. He has been charged with drugs and weapons offences. Maduro and his wife were arrested at their compound in Caracas at the weekend and flown to the US in a special forces operation, with dramatic images showing them in handcuffs under armed guard. The move has triggered international backlash, with the UN Secretary-General warning international law, he says, may not have been respected. China and Iran have also condemned the arrest. US President Donald Trump, though, has defended the action, while here in the UK, Keir Starmer is facing pressure to respond. Earlier today, our political editor Chris Hope asked the Prime Minister if his critics are wrong.
Look, people will take different positions on this, but I think the vast majority of Labour voters and supporters, in fact the vast majority of people across the country, would say the most important thing is that peaceful transition to democracy. It's been years in the waiting, and now we need a period of stabilisation, but we mustn't lose sight of the fact that the most important thing is that transition to democracy in Venezuela.
We will, of course, take you live to New York as soon as Nicolas Maduro arrives. In other news, the Prime Minister has said he stands with Denmark after Donald Trump suggested the United States could annex Greenland. Keir Starmer said Denmark's Prime Minister was right to reject any US claim, insisting Greenland's future is for Greenland and Denmark alone. Mr. Trump, though, has argued the territory is vital for US defence, citing its strategic location and mineral wealth. Friedrichsen said the proposal makes absolutely no sense, though, and that the US has no right to the land. Police in the United States have arrested a suspect after the home of Vice President J.D. Vance was broken into overnight in Ohio. The Secret Service says an adult male was detained after windows were smashed at the property in Cincinnati. The house was unoccupied at the time, and the Vice President and his family were not in the state. Authorities say the suspect remains in custody with no motive confirmed at this stage. GB News can confirm the first small boat crossing of 2026 has reached the UK, bringing dozens of illegal migrants across the Channel overnight. The journey was made in freezing sub-zero conditions after several other attempted crossings were forced to turn back because of the weather. French authorities treated a number of migrants for hypothermia after those failed attempts. The arrival today comes after more than 41,000 people crossed the Channel last year, making it the second highest total ever recorded. And that comes as new border powers today have come into force, allowing immigration officers to seize mobile phones and SIM cards from small boat migrants without making an arrest. The government says the move will speed up intelligence gathering to target people smuggling gangs behind Channel crossings. Ministers insist the powers will be used proportionately, but critics argue the changes amount to little more than a cosmetic deterrent. Well, the Shadow Immigration Minister Matt Vickers told us he thinks the policy is just tinkering around the edges.
People who break into this country, who come in illegally, without permission, without the passport, who have no right to be here, should be removed. That's how you solve this. Everybody at home knows it. It's the common sense approach, and we know it works because we tested it when we had that agreement in place with Albania. It was one of the top places from which people were arriving in the country. We stopped those people coming, we removed them straight away, and all of a sudden, 93% less of them were arriving in this country. We need a deterrent, we need it in place. Everything else is tinkering around the edges.
Well, let's take you back now to scenes outside court in New York, where we are hearing reports from the New York Times, among other media outlets in the United States, that Nicolas Maduro has arrived in court for his first appearance since being seized by US forces. The Venezuelan president, of course, arrested in that US Special Forces operation in Caracas and then flown to the United States, where he is today facing charges relating to drugs trafficking and weapons offences. As you can see there on screen, a heavy security presence outside court. Both pro and anti-Maduro protesters gathered outside and a large number of media on the scene. We'll get the very latest with our national reporter Charlie Peters in just a short moment. But for now, let's take you back to Martin in Westminster for the very latest on this developing story.
Thank you, Sam. Now, as you just heard there, we got the breaking news story, and that is Nicolas Maduro has, we believe, appeared in that court in Manhattan. The shamed former president of Venezuela, of course, dramatically removed, extracted from Venezuela, now facing the music in Manhattan. Let's go to GB News' national reporter Charlie Peters for all the latest. Charlie, we saw there pictures of protesters outside, seemingly, incredibly, in support of the shamed former socialist president, and now he's inside facing the music. A total humiliation for the former president.
Well, Martin, it's curious, the scenes outside we're seeing now. I say curious, it's actually in common practice with what we've seen from Venezuelans in the United States in recent years. Many of them, of course, fleeing the country due to the tyrannical regime under Nicolas Maduro, the socialist dictator. Some 8 million Venezuelans having left the country. And so what we're seeing outside the courtroom is many Venezuelans in America chanting in support of the removal of Nicolas Maduro. But then there are some anti-imperialists, as they might term themselves, sort of leftist activists who are campaigning and protesting against the US military operation. From reports I've seen elsewhere, it appears that most of the Venezuelans who are outside the court are supportive of the efforts conducted by the United States. But we can tell you now that Nicolas Maduro has appeared in the courtroom. He's wearing a short-sleeve navy shirt over the orange jail equipment, and he's also wearing earphones, likely there for the translation of what goes ahead. His hair is streaked with grey, and he is actually taking notes in the courtroom. That's court 26A inside Worth Street, where this is taking place, in New York, in the Southern District. Now, the judge involved, Judge Hellerstein, a 92-year-old who has recently conducted federal prosecutions against senior Venezuelan figures, is also in the courtroom from the proceedings. Now, what's happening now, Martin, is that there's going to be an arraignment, which is where Nicolas Maduro is informed of the charges and then given that opportunity to enter his plea. The last Venezuelan senior leader in a US court in the Southern District of New York did actually plead guilty to drug trafficking and these so-called narco-terrorist charges that the Drug Enforcement Administration provided via the Department of Justice. The judge will also then make sure that Maduro has got his appointed defence counsel. We understand that he does have an attorney provided by the court, but is likely to take his own private counsel as this case progresses. And the Judge Hellerstein, he will then also be required to consider bail. But in those dramatic scenes we saw earlier of Nicolas Maduro and his wife, Chilia Flores, being taken from that detention centre in Brooklyn and flown over to Manhattan, I think it's highly unlikely that any bail is going to be granted in this case. He is the most VIP of all prisoners in the United States at the moment. He will be kept back at that Brooklyn detention centre, which will raise further questions, Martin, of when a trial date could be set. And will we have that dramatic, almost cinematic perp walk that we saw earlier today with heavily armed federal agents moving Nicolas Maduro as he changes through a range of prison outfits, earlier seen in those orange slip-on shoes associated with those high-security prisoners in the United States, moving over via helicopter over the sunrise on the Manhattan skyline before being taken by armoured vehicles by federal agents towards the courtroom. But court proceedings ongoing now. Maduro has been asked to identify himself in the courtroom, and he has responded in Spanish. He's called himself the President of the Republic of Venezuela and said that he is there kidnapped. That is the deposed president of Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro, saying that he is kidnapped in a New York City courtroom. That came after the judge in this case, Alvin Hellerstein, that 92-year-old Orthodox Jewish judge who has spent over a quarter of a century handling these federal cases. A lot of them are all involving national security and terrorism counts. He has told the court that he is there to monitor proceedings, obviously, but also to ensure a fair trial if a trial is where this proceeds. He said, quote, "That's my job and that's my intent." And the judge then went through to summarise the indictment. So many charges there about accusing Maduro of leading the Venezuelan drug import process, saying that he is at the head of a criminal narco state. That indictment also went on to say that for over 25 years, leaders of Venezuela had abused their positions of public trust and corrupted once legitimate institutions to import tons of cocaine into the United States. The indictment, which the judge is reading through right now, also said that Maduro was at the forefront of that corruption and used his illegally obtained authority and the institutions he corroded to transport thousands of tons of cocaine to the United States. And as that indictment is read out, we can see Venezuelans in the United States chanting against Nicolas Maduro, inside saying that he is a kidnapped president of Venezuela. This is an extraordinary situation taking place inside the courtroom. He is standing and speaking in Spanish, saying that he was captured in his home in Caracas in Venezuela. As he started speaking, the judges interrupted him, saying there will be time and place to get into all of this, and that for now he's just asking him to confirm his identity. And Maduro has then responded to that by repeating he is Nicolas Maduro Moros, the kidnapped president of the Republic of Venezuela. The judge, of course, has the highest authority of anyone in that room, being forced to interrupt and try and tell Nicolas Maduro, who is again calling himself kidnapped, that he can't just be expected to stand there and give a personal statement. Maduro was asked for his plea by the judge, and he has responded by saying, "I'm innocent. I'm not guilty. I'm a decent man. Maduro has said that, asked for his plea. And this came to Judge Hellerstein, who said that he had the indictment in his hands for the very first time. He said, "Would you like me to read it to you?" And Maduro said through an interpreter, "I would rather read it personally." But he has closed the opening proceedings of his first court appearance in this Manhattan court by saying, "I'm innocent. I'm not guilty. I am a decent man." Nicolas Maduro there pleading not guilty to all 4 counts against him. Nicolas Maduro, the president of Venezuela, deposed in that dramatic military operation by the United States, saying he's kidnapped and not guilty.
Thank you, Charlie Peter, there for that very comprehensive roundup. And live pictures there from outside that New York courtroom. Is an astonishing paradox, you might think. Venezuelan people there holding the flag with pictures of lines drawn through pictures of Maduro. The Venezuelans seem happy about the fact the former president has been disposed, but seem to be some other white liberal Americans saving their chagrin for Donald Trump, seemingly swapping their Palestine flags for different flags today, perhaps. It's worth noting there's a plot twist here. The lawyer who has acted for Julian Assange is listed as Maduro's legal representative, and a lot of people asking, were the actions of the United States illegal? Well, now the Trump administration are saying they can rely on the War Powers Act, which allows the president to initiate short-term military action for up to 60 days and an additional 30 days for withdrawal. So the US authorities saying there they have full legal cover. This was not illegal, but for the time being, at least, the former president of Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro, inside that Manhattan court, facing the music on American soil. We'll have full reaction to that, of course, throughout the rest of the show. I'm joined in the studio for reaction by GB News' chief senior political correspondent, Catherine Forster, and also the Labour Party MP for Kettering, Rosie Writing. Happy New Year to the pair of you. It's the first time I've worked with both of you in 2026. We just heard there that Maduro has pleaded not guilty to all of those charges, which will therefore, of course, further prolong this dramatic, perhaps unprecedented legal case. Full reaction to that throughout today and, of course, the rest of the week as it unfolds. Let's get back now to the studio. Catherine Forster. Our political editor, Chris Hope, sat down with Sir Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, earlier on today, trying to get some reaction out of him. Sir Keir Starmer has never been shy to condemn people like Vladimir Putin, Benjamin Netanyahu over international conflict. But once again, Sir Keir Starmer seems to be back in his most favoured position on this one, sitting on the fence.
Well, this is a nightmare for the Prime Minister. Of course, he was formerly a human rights lawyer. There's big questions over the legality of what Donald Trump has done. Interesting what you said just then. But the government has been very clear, saying nobody sheds tears for Maduro. He was a bad man, and it's welcome that there will be new government. Well, let's see what happens. But did not want to get into criticising Trump. But I thought it was very interesting that when Chris Hope asked the Prime Minister about Greenland, he took a very firm stance. Let's have a look at what Sir Keir Starmer had to say earlier about that.
The future of Greenland is for Greenland and the Kingdom of Denmark, and for Greenland and the future of Denmark only. And Denmark is a very close ally of the UK, both in Europe and in NATO, and it's very important that we're clear about the principles applicable to here. Greenland and the Kingdom of Denmark must determine the future of Greenland and nobody else.
Get some reaction now from Rosie Writing, a Labour MP, if I could. Sir Keir Starmer has been asked many times to condemn Donald Trump's actions. He won't.
Well, we shouldn't be, as Keir has said and Catherine said, shed any tears or be sad about the end of the illegitimate regime of Maduro. Of course, it is a complex situation. The US is a close ally of us, the closest when it comes to security and defence. As Keir said in a media yesterday, he wasn't aware this was going to happen before it happened. I imagine in the upcoming days there'll be conversations and he will discuss the details with President Trump. But at this time, I think it's a far fast-moving situation, but we cannot be sad or shed any tears about the end of this regime.
I think in defence of Sir Keir Starmer, I don't think Donald Trump told anybody about this move, perhaps not even his own lawmakers. I think surprise was the ultimate element here. But Rosie Wrighting, could I ask you about the position of Greenland? Of course, Greenland being a NATO member, much more closely allied to us than Venezuela. I don't think anybody's suggesting, perhaps they are, that Donald Trump will make moves into Greenland. But Sir Keir Starmer there saying Greenland's sovereignty, Greenland's situation is entirely up to them. Is that once again the Prime Minister sitting on the fence?
No, I mean, I don't think it's helpful to talk about hypothetical situations that haven't yet happened. But of course, Greenland is an ally of us. It's in NATO, and the future of Greenland should be determined by the Danish people. I don't think that's Keir Starmer sitting at the fence. What I actually think is what we're seeing from Keir Starmer, our Prime Minister, is his strength, his diplomacy, his ability to talk to our international partners and do what's best for Britain and for NATO. And I believe that's what we're seeing from him now.
We have seen some politicians on the left seemingly leap into the defence of Nicolas Maduro. Richard Bergen, of course, Jeremy Corbyn, they seem to have more sympathy with a shamed former socialist despot than they do with Donald Trump.
I'm not sad to see the end of Maduro's regime. I think he was an illegitimate president who wasn't democratically elected. I think the future of Venezuela is for their people to decide, but I do not share those views of my colleagues.
Just to remind you, if you're tuning in now, these are live pictures from New York. The former president of Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro, inside that Manhattan courthouse. We understand he has pleaded not guilty to all charges put to him of narco-terrorism, of firearms abuses. He answered, we understand, solely in Spanish. Earlier on, we saw him frog march out of a helicopter wearing pyjamas and slippers and manacles, followed by his wife. Very, very humiliating scenes for a former president. I understand we've got some new lines now from Charlie Peters. Charlie Peters, what do you got for us?
Well, as Maduro had said that he was innocent, he said, I am not guilty, and said, I'm a kidnapped president of Venezuela. His wife has now stood up in court. The judge turning to Gia Flores, his co-defendant in this case. She immediately says, not guilty, completely innocent, as she's pleading in court. And while this is taking place, Martin, Maduro, who is sitting next to his wife, his arms are on the armrests in the chair in the dock in Courtroom 26A, and he's been seen clasping his hands in a prayer motion and lowering his head. Reporters in the courtroom saying that he's fidgeting around, glancing all over the room, and then bowing his head, returning to those prayers. Now, she said she's not guilty, completely innocent. And then Hellerstein asked, this is remarkable, Martin, he's asked the court for the date and time of the arrest. Because, of course, United States Special Forces and the Department of Justice conducted this arrest in their bedroom in the early hours of Saturday morning. But the official arrest, the prosecutor from the Southern District of New York has responded that the defendants officially entered law enforcement custody at 11:30 a.m. on January the 3rd. There is no mention, Martin, whatsoever of that military raid in Caracas by the Night Stalkers from the Specialist Operations Aviation Regiment who dropped in those Delta Force operators into that highly secure, well, was once highly secure, presidential compound. So the date of the time of the arrest, we now know officially, according to the US prosecution, is 11:30 a.m. on January the 3rd. That will be, just by my quick calculations, actually around 10 hours or so after the raid took place. So perhaps it's that they're referring to custody with law enforcement once he was on US soil. And by US soil, I think that might be Guantanamo Bay in Cuba, where he then and Flores and Maduro came into contact of the FBI before being flown towards New York at the Air National Guard station there, before then being transferred, of course, to that detention centre in Brooklyn and then being taken to this courtroom today. So usually we would expect the prosecution in a federal prosecution of this manner to summarise the evidence in the case. They would go through, for example, any information they've gathered through normal law enforcement means, such as documents or recordings. You might expect information that might have been gathered in searches. It's interesting to know what else those agents gathered on the ground in Venezuela. Now, the US Assistant Attorney in the courtroom will be Kyle A. Wershba, who will be delivering some of the prosecution information. That should be coming to us very shortly, Martin. But just to run up to speed any of our audience just joining us now, Nicolas Maduro and his wife have appeared in this courtroom that you're seeing on your screens now behind you, guarded by federal agents. Now, the judge, Alvin K. Hellerstein, he entered the courtroom about 20 minutes ago with Maduro and his wife both appearing, sitting 2 seats away from each other, wearing navy and orange prison uniforms. The judge said it was his job and his intent to ensure fair proceeding and a fair trial. And then some of the dramatics started. The judge asking Nicolas Maduro to identify himself. He said, "I am kidnapped. The president of the Republic of Venezuela," answering in Spanish to that courtroom. He then stood up, Nicolas Maduro, started speaking in Spanish, saying he was captured at his home in Caracas. He was speaking very quickly in Spanish, almost raising his voice, before Judge Hellerstein had to interrupt him and say there will be a time and place to get into all of this, referring, I assume, to any trial that may take place down the line. For now, Martin, this is just an arraignment when the charges are read out and he's asked to put forward a plea. But when he did do that, he answered, "I'm innocent. I'm not guilty. I'm a decent man," only for his attorney to then clarify, actually, he was pleading not guilty to all 4 of the counts against him in that indictment, very similar to the one first opened in 2020 under the last Trump administration. And then it was the turn of Chilia Flores, Maduro's wife and co-defendant. She also said that she was not guilty, completely innocent. That's how she pleaded, with Maduro appearing to fidget in his chair, put his hands in a prayer motion, lowering his head, glancing around the room, looking around the room, which is packed with reporters. We should be expecting more updates to come from the prosecution in a moment, but that is the state of play now, with those dramatic encounters between the judge, the prosecution, and both of the defendants in this case. And Martin, Maduro has been on display to the world since he was captured. The White House not shying from putting him and all the latest images of him around the world. It almost seems, Martin, at this point, that perhaps it's a bit personal for Donald Trump, particularly as there was reporting over the weekend that the decision to launch this raid was intensified and pushed further along quite dramatically over a feeling inside the US administration that Nicolas Maduro, the socialist dictator who refused to concede the last election, that he was starting to taunt the Americans. That footage in Venezuela showed him laughing and dancing and listening to electronic music with his own voice playing over it, saying, "No war, only peace." That this was seen in the US as Maduro bluffing. As Trump bluffing, that he wouldn't go through with his threats of war, his threats that he could come in, swoop into Venezuela. Well, it certainly seems as though those feelings that Trump was just bluffing. I wonder what Mr. Maduro is praying for now inside that courtroom. Maduro, he has obviously not been permitted to speak in the court, but he's still trying to push the rules in the courtroom, Martin. He has told the judge that he would like to ask that my notes be respected and that I be allowed to keep them. Judge Hellerstein has reacted to this by saying, "I believe you are entitled to keep them. So a little interjection there from Nicolas Maduro inside the courtroom. One of Maduro's lawyers, Barry Polak, said that he is not seeking release at this time in discussions on bail. But curiously, he said he may later seek that bail. So Barry Polak, Maduro's lawyer, saying that for now they're not seeking bail, but he could do so down the line. Now, Barry Polak, Martin, is one of the leading trial lawyers in the United States. He was Julian Assange's lawyer, as you said earlier. He's a partner at the Harris, St. Lawrence and Welsher, and he's also represented a former Enron Corporation accountant who was acquitted at a very high-profile trial, represented, as I say, the WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange, but now, in possibly his most high-profile challenge yet, he's representing a socialist despot who has refused to accept that his time in power is over and is now telling a US courtroom that he's kidnapped, already trying to push at the court rules, and he's saying that he's innocent, completely innocent, not guilty on all 4 counts, and that is the plea that his wife, Julia Flores, has also made, Martin. And as the bail arrangements are concluded, we will now await the judge, Alvin K. Hellerstein, that 92-year-old federal judge who's been working on national security cases for over 25 years. We're now waiting for him to lay out the schedule for the case. Information could soon come to us on how quickly this case will now progress, when the parties will need to file motions, and finally, Martin, possibly in what will be one of the most dramatic stories in 2026, a trial date for Nicolas Maduro and Julia Flores.
Jolly Peters, very, very comprehensive update there to this astonishing, unprecedented, historic court case. The former president of Venezuela there facing the music in Manhattan. I am not guilty. I am a decent man. I am still the president of my country. Nicolas Maduro defiantly roared 3 facts Donald Trump will almost entirely, completely counter as untrue. We'll have full reaction to this astonishing story throughout the rest of the show. Stick with us.
Afternoon, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. The cold spell continues, slowly getting a bit milder later this week, but still very cold tonight, a continued risk of ice, and for some there will be further snow flurries. We have a few Met Office yellow warnings in place. The snow showers in eastern England should be fading away this evening, and they'll tend to ease off in Wales and southwest England too, but still some to come here in the next few hours. Some snow showers continuing across Scotland and Northern Ireland. Won't be as cold in Scotland as the cloud increases here through the night, but for England and Wales, a hard frost could get down to minus double figures in some rural spots, particularly where there's snow lying on the ground. So a frosty, potentially icy start to Tuesday. This cloud bringing a real mishmash across Scotland tomorrow. There will be some rain, but still some snow mixed in too, particularly could be heavy over parts of northern Scotland. An ice risk further south, and for southern Scotland, northern England could also wake up to a covering of snow here. Further south, the snow showers may be easing around the western and easternmost coast, but still it could be very icy in the morning wherever we've had the showers today as things freeze up overnight. Much of the south dry and fine then on Tuesday with some sunshine. We'll see thicker cloud at times over northern England, particularly Scotland, where we continue with the risk of some heavy snow, especially across the north. Further south, there'll be more outbreaks of rain with some hill snow possible for Northern Ireland and Wales late in the day. But as I say, for much of the south, it'll be dry. Still on the cold side. Now, Wednesday sees the weather system clearing out into the North Sea. Still some wintry showers, mixture of rain, sleet and snow in these showers coming into eastern areas. Sunny spells for many elsewhere, and temperatures just starting to pick up perhaps a little bit as we go towards Wednesday, and then the potential for some more significant weather as we go into Thursday. But keep up to date with all those Met Office warnings. They're on the Met Office website.
Westminster, the ultimate clique.
And you're fighting like rats in a sack.
But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask.
OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician.
Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless.
But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show.
Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Welcome back. Time is 25 to 6 with me, Martin Daubney, here on GB News. Now, as the new year unfolds, Sir Keir Starmer remains confident that he will still be the Prime Minister this time next year, emphasising that frequent changes in leadership are not in the national interests. Well, join me now in the studio is GB News' chief political correspondent, Catherine Forster, and also the Labour Party MP for Kettering, Rosie Writing. Welcome to you both. Catherine, let's start with you. A lot of talk over the weekend about what the new year will bring for the under fire Prime Minister, and our own political editor Chris Hope spoke with Sir Keir Starmer in Reading earlier on today. And as you expect, it's a new year, but the same old foe is waiting. Sir Keir Starmer having a pop at Nigel Farage.
Well, yes, indeed. I mean, the Prime Minister wants ostensibly to talk about cost of living. He wanted to talk about rail fares falling and all the rest of it. But, of course, we're all talking about Donald Trump and Greenland and Venezuela. But, yes, our political editor, Christopher Hope, interviewed him, and it does seem that the Prime Minister just cannot resist, given any opportunity, to mention Nigel Farage. Let's have a look at what he said about him earlier.
Nigel Farage says a lot of things that aren't true and don't come to fruition. So he stood in front of your viewers in the Brexit referendum and said, if we leave the EU, migration will come down. Well, it didn't come down, it quadrupled. So what you get with Nigel Farage is a lot of slippery things that are said, but when you hold them up to the light, they're not actually true. And peddling falsehoods is no way to solve the problems of this country.
Spicy.
So never wastes any opportunity to have a go at Nigel Farage. And just a couple of things there, though. He talked about Nigel Farage saying that he'd promised $350 million a week to the NHS. Nigel Farage never did that. That was the Conservatives. I think it was Theresa May. And also, actually, that money did go to the NHS. The NHS has had so much more funding. I think it was about $400 million in a week a few years ago. I remember it quite vividly. But anyway, the overall line is that he wants people to believe that Nigel Farage is not to be trusted and makes promises that he cannot deliver on. Nigel Farage, of course, would say, hey, I wasn't in power, so it's not my fault if Brexit hasn't gone as people would have wanted it.
Yeah, the post-Brexit spiralling immigration, of course, is the Boris wave down to Boris Johnson. Rosie, let's get your take on this. Having a pop at Nigel Farage for being slippery and saying he comes out with falsehoods and says things that are not true. Isn't that a bit rich from a Prime Minister who's U-turned on practically everything? U-turned on the benefits cuts, U-turned on the winter fuel allowance, U-turned on the inheritance tax cuts for farmers, U-turned on a rape gang inquiries. Isn't it Sir Keir Starmer who's slippery?
I think we should be calling Nigel Farage out for who he is. He's someone who he speaks to your viewers, he speaks to my constituents, people on social media, and he says, you know, if we just do this one thing, we can change our country. And he can't deliver on it. He has no interest in Britain being stronger, being the country that I am optimistic it can be. All he wants is to divide our country. And that is because he gains power from that. And that's what we saw in Brexit from Nigel Farage as well. We saw a man who seeks to divide so that he can be the person who stands and says, oh, I wasn't actually involved in this. This isn't my fault. You're all fighting each other because it suits only him and benefits only him.
But Sir Keir Starmer is in power. And the fact of the matter is the division in the country is happening on your boss's watch and the Prime Minister's popularity is going downhill faster than the Jamaican bobsleigh team. Sir Keir Starmer is the least popular Prime Minister in history. Why is he wasting his time talking about Nigel Farage?
I feel incredibly optimistic about 2026. I think that we made decisions over the last 2 years, a year and a half that we've been empowered, that we're going to see come into fruition. I understand partly the reason people are divided is because people are hurt. Their lives, they don't feel great right now. I hear that from people in Kettering and across the country. I believe this is the year that people will start to feel that change in their pay packets, on their bills, in their weekly shops, inflation down. I think that people are going to see that this is a country that we should talk up, not down like Nigel Farage. A strong country that's got an amazing future ahead of it because of Keir Starmer's leadership.
We might see a lot of change in May, in Wales, in Scotland, in the elections where your boss is allowing them to carry on. It's going to be a dark time for the Labour Party in May by most people's reckonings. Are you confident that the Prime Minister can survive what's looking like it's going to be a pasting?
I'm confident that the future of this country is determined on us staying on course, and that means Keir Starmer being our Prime Minister.
OK. Catherine Forster, Sir Keir Starmer also spoke with Chris Hope, I believe, on hospitality. Of course, pubs very much under the cosh. Is there signs of light for embattled boozers?
Yes, well, we know that some pubs have been literally banning their local Labour MPs from them. The Prime Minister, I think, didn't answer on whether he'd been banned. But yes, let's have a look at what he had to say on hospitality.
You acknowledge for pubs and others that the re-evaluation means that they will struggle in relation to the business rates applicable to them. That's why we're working with them, and also other measures. They want more freedom for licensing. They want more freedom to actually open for longer, and we're very open to that discussion with them.
So they obviously are aware that what was announced in the last budget is very difficult for pubs, and they are looking at what further support there will be. Of course, the industry had a lot of help during COVID. That was never going to last indefinitely, but pubs are closing at a record rate.
Rosie Wrighton, could I ask you for a final comment from you? We've seen a U-turn on winter fuel. We've seen a U-turn on farming. Surely it's time for a U-turn, or at least a real lifeline to pubs. Otherwise, there won't be any left.
I think pubs are the cornerstone of our country. I mean, so many of my villages are social activities. For a lot of people, it's the most important part of their day is when they go to a pub and they have a conversation with someone, particularly elderly people. I think there's lots of ways we can support pubs. I think it's about people having more disposable income to spend in pubs, better trade deals so that they can get their produce in easier. I understand it's difficult, as Catherine said, this business rates relief coming to an end is tough, but the income of pubs can't rely on support that was given in COVID. Pubs need to be profitable and fruitious in their own right, and we can support them in that.
Okay, thank you very much for your time. Thanks for sticking with us. I know you've got a busy schedule. That's Rosie Wrighton, the Labour Party MP for Kettering. And also thank you to you, Catherine Forster, for your expertise as ever. Now, still to come, shocking new data has revealed that at least 30 dangerous mental health patients secretly free from hospitals have gone on to kill. I'll be joined by the father of one of those victims next. But first, here's the forecast for some of the top European destinations.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean all clear skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Hello there. If you're after some warmer weather, Greece at the moment seeing temperatures above average. Still the risk of some showers across the Canary Islands at the moment and parts of Madeira. Perhaps southern Spain also seeing 1 or 2 showers, but generally some bright skies around. Heavier rain for parts of Italy on Tuesday. Could be thundery at times, and then the risk of some showers into Greece, but temperatures well above average for the time of year. And it remains so here for the next few days until eventually starting to cool down.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m.
Only on GB News.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
So this is a lovely story because it's about a chap who bought this DB5 and he bought it for 900 quid. This is an Aston Martin DB5.
It's a lovely car.
Bought it for 900 quid. And then for 50 years, pretty much didn't do very much. He moved to the Middle East, car left was on his driveway, things happened, the local kids jumped on it and various other things, and it just decayed. He has spent pretty much the big wodge of 400 grand having it done.
Do you have a picture of this car now?
Oh, I thought as I was waffling. Well, I can hold it up. But this is how it looks now. There we go. This is how it looked then and now. I don't know which.
So he spent 400 grand on this.
400 grand. He sent it back to Aston Martin.
Oh.
To where it was made, and the reason it's worth now about $1 million is because there were only 37, I think,
39
of them made, and so it's very rare. There we go. Well done, him.
Pretty penny on that. Good for him.
Yeah. Yes, and good for him.
He hasn't made it yet.
No, he hasn't made it. It's just worth. I know. He may.
I was reading a story about a man who'd spent £1 million on a DB5, and it's now worth 500,000. But,
right,
they
OK.
hit a peak a couple of years ago, but who knows? Who knows?
Who knows?
But don't you want to spend money on a car in order to use it, not to sell it?
Well,
I mean,
he's just...
I had a car like that. I drive it.
Of course. No, then that's what... He's not selling it. He's worked hard to... He said, we've worked hard to get it
It's a work of art.
Reconditioned, and it's just... And he loves it.
I wonder, does it have machine guns and things they're going to...
Oh, no, weirdly, it says no.
Or an ejector
no ejector seat, exactly. Or any of those other things, yeah.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pearce.
And me, Miriam Cates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
It's 5:47, just to recap now on the huge breaking news story in this past hour. Nicolas Maduro described himself as a prisoner of war during his first court appearance in Manhattan. Since being captured by the United States, he pled not guilty. And his next court appearance, we understand, will now be on the 17th of March. Now, moving on, a major investigation has revealed that at least 30 patients released from high-security psychiatric hospitals went on to commit murder after their secret release. And let's now speak with the father of the Nottingham attacks victim, Grace O'Malley Kumar, and that's Dr. Sanjoy Kumar. Dr. Sanjoy, it's a pleasure to have your company, and I hope you had a peaceful and festive period. Very, very concerning data here out today, Dr. Kumar. At least 30 dangerous patients went on to kill. 55% of those sent to secure hospitals are quietly freed within 5 years. This must send a chill down your spine.
Absolutely, Martin. Thank you for having me on your programme, and Happy New Year to you. I was just going to say, this is another failure, isn't it? It just goes to show that this system that they have of an independent mental health tribunal just does not work. It's meant to have a judge, it's meant to have a psychiatrist, and it's meant to have another mental health worker. These tribunals should be scrapped by David Lammy because they're just not fit for purpose. If you release someone and he murders, for any kind of capital punishment, that capital offence that a person commits, they should have this whole thing about a hospital treatment order is also an absolute nonsense. You've seen it on your program. I've seen it. They just don't work. What we need to have is hybrid orders. As soon as a person has been given his medication and so-called mended in the system, he should then serve his punishment in prison. Hospital orders don't work. They're a failure. David Lammy needs to do something about it. As it is, he's talking about scrapping jury trials, etc. This is the next thing that should be on his agenda to make our country the safest in Europe. This is one of the key steps that we must take. We had a meeting with the Secretary of State for Health on the 8th of December. where we said to him that this whole system of discharging paranoid schizophrenics into the community does not work. And it's a misnomer that you can discharge someone with a lifelong illness. This system does not work. Why on earth are people being discharged in the first place? The whole system, if you analyze it, Martin, starts with psychiatrists. During the trial, it's a trial by psychiatrists, and then they get let out by psychiatrists. And these are the people who are not held to account when things go wrong. Why should that also happen? Why are we not holding psychiatrists to account for the wrong judgments? If you look at the Southport inquiry press cuttings, look at the psychiatrists and the evidence they give, reads like a car crash. The person said, I read all of the notes about radical. He didn't read any of the notes. It's all in there. It's like a heart doctor saying to you, Martin, that I tell you what, I'm going to ignore the 2 episodes of heart pain, angina that you've had. You end up having a heart attack, and you're not holding the cardiologist or the heart doctor responsible. In the same way, if you section someone, like in our case, 4 times, you get it wrong 4 times, and he goes on to kill, what, you shouldn't be held responsible? How does that work?
Sanjoy, Emma Webber, of course, the mother of Barnaby, has also spoken out about this. And as I understand it, there are grave fears that you have as the surviving relatives that Valdo Calacane is responding to psychiatric treatment. And of course, that means there could be the spectre of him potentially being released in the future. And Sanjoy, you're resolute, and you have been all along. You believe he should never have been sent to hospital. He should have been sent to prison for murder.
Martin, you're absolutely right. And who did we get that wrong because of? A psychiatrist. A psychiatrist actually misled our trial and said that this person was treatment resistant. He wasn't treatment resistant at all. Read the notes in the hospital. This man responded to treatment all the time, 4 times when he was sectioned. But what he didn't do is take his treatment. Now, that was wrong evidence given in our trial and in our case. And that was an absolute failure. So what happened in our case especially just goes to show how psychiatrists can completely turn a case upside down and get it wrong.
OK, we have to leave it there. Thank you. No, let's talk to you, actually. Are you fearful? We have a quick minute. Are you fearful that Valdo Calacane could at some point be released?
I'm fearful for him if he gets released. I don't think the public will accept him being out in the public. And I think the public have had enough. If you look at all of these cases that we've had, even reported today, I don't think people are going to be happy that people such as this live in our community who've not served their sentence for murdering someone. That's just not good enough. We should have the safest country in Europe. That's what our campaign as families is all about. And we will not stop. We have lost the loves of our lives. And I'll tell you what, we will not stop till our country is 0 on mental health related homicide. Okay. We cannot afford to have any more homicides related to mental health.
OK. Dr. Sanjoy Kumar, we have to leave it there. It's an absolute pleasure to speak to you. Love to your wife. I wish you a happy new year. Let's speak to you more in the new year. Up next is Jubes & Co., the queen of primetime debates. Jubes, what's on your menu?
Hello, Martin. Fantastic show as always. Happy New Year as well to each and every single one of you. I've missed you. It's great to be back. There is so much that we need to discuss tonight. Of course, I'll cover all the big stories as you would expect, but I also want to ask you about Saturday jobs as well. How concerned are you if you've got kids or grandkids and they're trying to get into the world of work? These Saturday jobs, they don't even exist anymore. What did you used to do? I used to love the ones that I did. I'll get into that and a whole lot more in a minute.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Boxed Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Afternoon, welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. The cold spell continues, slowly getting a bit milder later this week, but still very cold tonight, continued risk of ice, and for some there will be further snow flurries. We have a few Met Office yellow warnings in place. The snow showers in eastern England should be fading away this evening, and they'll tend to ease off in Wales and southwest England too, but still some to come here in the next few hours. Some snow showers continuing across Scotland and Northern Ireland. Won't be as cold in Scotland as the cloud increases here through the night, but for England and Wales, a hard frost could get down to minus double figures in some rural spots, particularly where there's snow lying on the ground. So a frosty, potentially icy start to Tuesday. This cloud bringing a real mishmash across Scotland tomorrow. There will be some rain, but still some snow mixed in too. Particularly could be heavy over parts of northern Scotland. An ice risk further south, and for southern Scotland, northern England could also wake up to a covering of snow here. Further south, the snow showers may be easing around the western and easternmost coast, but still it could be very icy in the morning wherever we've had the showers today as things freeze up overnight. Much of the south dry and fine then on Tuesday with some sunshine. We'll see thicker cloud at times over northern England, particularly Scotland, where we continue with the risk of some heavy snow, especially across the north. Further south, there'll be more outbreaks of rain with some hill snow possible for Northern Ireland and Wales late in the day. But as I say, for much of the south, it'll be dry. Still on the cold side. Now, Wednesday sees the weather system clearing out into the North Sea. Still some wintry showers, mixture of rain, sleet and snow in these showers coming into eastern areas. Sunny spells for many elsewhere, and temperatures just starting to pick up perhaps a little bit as we go towards Wednesday, and then the potential for some more significant weather as we go into Thursday. But keep up to date with all those Met Office warnings. They're on the Met Office website.
Today, clouds overhead, total zen within. Box Solar sponsors the weather on GB News.
Thank you for making us Britain's #1 news channel. Together, we have built something truly extraordinary.
Good evening, this is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. On the A470 northbound from Courtroom to Nantgarw, congestion is building. In Derby, the A52 eastbound at the junction with the A5111 has a broken down vehicle with one lane closed. On the M1 southbound between junction 14 and junction 13 near Milton Keynes, a road traffic collision is causing around 40 minutes of delays and 2 lanes are shut. And on the trains, Grand Central and Hull trains report major disruption between Peterborough and Stevenage, with further disruption between Peterborough and Grantham. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Hello from the Aurora Collection Resort here in Lapland. We're on an amazing Arctic adventure to celebrate our greatest cash giveaway, a simply stunning £85,000.
And in 2026, we're giving you the chance to win it all.
For another chance to win £85,000 cash, text cash to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB18 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 30th of January. The winner may be contacted live on GB News. Week commencing the 9th of February 2026. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
Bold. They are under no illusion. Ray, are you a human trafficker? Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get us on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What we're going to do now, they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
No,
because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
All too often, people will be sitting at home watching a press conference live, and they'll hear loads of questions being asked, and they'll be thinking, that's not my question. That's not my concern.
We don't care whose feathers we ruffle. We ask the questions that you want answering.
You're all standing on the street protesting and wanted to have an open discussion. My name is Patrick Christie. I do a show for GB News in the UK. Is it possible to talk to you quickly?
Journalism in this country has been a cosy world full of groupthink until now.
Well, this is the best view ever of Whitehall, looking out across all the tractor drivers of England who've come together to make their point.
Hello, so as you can see, I'm here in Westminster as the protest begins.
Yes, I'm very much in the thick of it.
Look, we're challenging narratives here at GB News, and that's what sets us apart.
Hello there and a very happy new year to you. It is 6 o'clock. I am Michelle Dewberry and this is Jubes & Co. Coming up tonight, of course, we've all seen